Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐀𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐚 on Wattpad. Now, let's start. Izuku had just walked in the front door after the ride with Yaoyorozu and was about to head straight to the kitchen, but before he could, 𝗀𝐻𝐸 had ran up to him with excitement in his voice with a surprise to show him. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, Izuku, you're here. Guess what, I did it. Izuku, damn it kid, I just walked in. Now what exactly did you do? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, here look. And so 𝗀𝐻𝐸 had gotten into a natural stance and then began to emit aura of his body and was preforming to. Izuku was more than shocked by this and for the first time in years actually had a small look of surprise on his face. It took him 3 months to awaken his aura, but 𝗀𝐻𝐸 did it in 2, but what was more surprising was that he was able to figure out how to use TI all on his own. Izuku, 𝗀𝐻𝐸, how did you? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, well, I just started still and mediated and didn't move all day and it's just happened. I didn't even eat or do anything all day. Izuku, just what time did you start? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, 5 a.m. Izuku. 𝗀𝐻𝐸. Yeah, Izuku then placed his hand on top of 𝗀𝐻𝐸's head and began crushing it. Izuku, what the hell were you thinking? I said you had to train hard, but 5 a.m. is just unhealthy for you. You're still a 10-year-old, remember? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, ow, please Izuku, that really hurts. Izuku, puts him down, then remember to get enough sleep from now on, you dimwit. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, yes Izuku. Izuku, but 𝗀𝐻𝐸. Izuku turns his head. You managed to get to the next stage faster than I thought you would. Place his hand on his shoot. Good job, kid. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, smiling, right, I won't let you down. Izuku, now before we go inside, tell me, how did you manage to figure out how to use TI on your own? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, oh well, I always saw you just standing still in the middle of the yard focusing after you were done in the kitchen. So I just figured that it was TI that you were doing. Izuku, you saw that, and that's all you need to figure it out. Geez, kid, you're smarter than I thought. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, pouts hey, what's that supposed to mean? Izuku, anyway, one last thing, show me your TI. 𝗀𝐻𝐸 did as he said and started surrounding his body in aura, and Izuku was a little impressive on how easy he grasped the concept of TI. His aura wasn't as strong as his was when he first started, but it was only his first day with his chi nodes open, and that could change if he's tried properly. Izuku, alright, tell me, how do you feel? 𝗀𝐻𝐸, it feels like I'm wearing weightless clothes. Izuku, that's good, I want you to hold on to that thought, it will help you when you're practicing TI. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, okay, got it. Izuku, good, and now that you awakened your aura, once you learn the 4 exercises we can then move to make your quirk stronger. 𝗀𝐻𝐸, really? Izuku, let's get inside, everyone's got to be waiting. After everyone had their dinner and once Izuku had finished cleaning, he and 𝗀𝐻𝐸 had spent the last hour training. Now that 𝗀𝐻𝐸 had awakened his chi, he had began training in fending off malicious chi, the same type that he used against his former family and friends, but unlike them, 𝗀𝐻𝐸 now has the defense necessary to protect against it. He still needs a lot of practice, but Izuku was sure that he will get it. Yagi house. The Yagis were having a family discussion about Izuku and about his quirk. Izumi was so confused about how her brother, who was deemed quirkless, suddenly had one, and questioned her parents since she figured they knew and kept it from her. Izumi, Mom, Dad, tell me, what was that I saw today? How does Izuku have a quirk now? Toshi, sight, alright, listen carefully Izumi, this is going to take a while. And so all might spend the night 20 minutes explaining the part about Izuku's disappearance that they left out and all the details they knew of so far about the mysterious quirk that he has. Needless to say, she was beyond shocked to hear all of this. How could a quirk like that even existed? The way her father described it was too powerful to be true, but more importantly, why did such a power choose Izuku? These questions were playing in her mind over and over. After about 5 minutes, she composed herself and began to ask more questions. Izumi, why you can't be serious, alright? I mean, how is that possible? Inko, I know how you feel. Izumi, I thought the same thing, but it seems to be true. We both saw how it possessed Izuku. It practice covered the entire sky in black above us that you could tell the difference between it and the night sky. Toshi, It's still a mystery, and it seems Izuku has no intention of revealing anything else to us anytime soon. Izumi, but then why? Why did you keep this from me? Toshi, look, Izumi, we're sorry for hiding this, but we figured that it would have been best if few people knew about this as possible. Izumi, but why? Why would All for One kidnap Izuku to have him possesses something that powerful and just let him go? Is there anything else you're not telling me? Toshi, I don't know the answer to that. I'm afraid the only one who would know is All for One. To answer your other question, there is one other thing we haven't told you. Izumi, are you serious? What is it? Toshi, well, sweetie, I don't know how to say this. You see, Izuku actually agreed to go with him. He wasn't taken by force. Izumi, what? No, that can't be true. Why would he? Inko crying, because of how we all treated him. All of one said that Izuku felt as if he was meaningless, that he didn't have a porous. He thought that there was no reason for him being born. We made him feel so alone and unwanted that he was willing to go along with that man and be used as nothing but a tool for him if it meant he could feel like he was worth something, and all because we stopped showing him the love and support we were supposed to give him. Izumi crying, no, I can't believe it. This is all my fault. I caused this. Damn it, just what kind of sister am I? Toshi, please Izumi, don't take all the blame, we're as much to blame. Izumi, but if I hadn't been so stupid to think my plan would work, then this never would have happened. I did nothing but caused my brother so much pain, all because I wanted to keep him safe, and all it did was let him to almost take his own life. Toshi, no Izumi, if anyone is to blame more than anyone, it's me. Inko, no, that's not true. Toshi, like I said earlier, I was the one who turned my back on him in the first place. Toshi, Inko, you saw the way he looked at me 2 days ago. His eyes, they were filled with nothing but hatred and sadness. Inko, he looked at both of us that way. Toshi, but you also heard what he said, didn't you? He said, I hated you more than anyone. Everything he said about me was true. Looking back on it, I can remember the numerous times Izuku tried coming to me for help and I just pushed him away. All I've ever done was ignore him, lied to him, which caused him to go with All of One, because he used the truth to persuade him and lose all faith in us. I know exactly what he thought. Everyone around me treated me the same way, even my own father turned his back on me. I promised to myself that I would do better, that I would never let my children suffer the same pain as me, but look at what I have done. My son hates me more than anyone and doesn't see me as a father or a hero. He even claimed to his whole class that he doesn't have a family. I'm nothing but a failure. For the rest of that night, the three of them spent time discussing about how much they hated themselves for what they did to Izuku, and all trying to figure out how they could possibly get him to forgive them, but no matter what, they thought it seems hopeless. The next day, Izuku had began walking to UA while listening to 3 Days Grace on his phone. As he was approaching the entrance, he noticed a lot of reporters surrounding it. Izuku, god damn it, what is this? They're probably here to see that damn All Might. As he was trying to get through the crowd, some reporter stopped to ask him about his worthless excuse for a father. Reporter, excuse me, could you please tell us about how All Might teaches? Izuku death glare, F off. After that, he looked back to see some of his classmates being interviewed after him and thought, well, SCKS to be them. Afterwards, he continued to walk inside and passed Mr. Izawa as he was going to deal with the crowd out front. Izawa, I saw how you handled the reporters, nicely done. Izuku, I take it you find them annoying too. Izawa, they're like leeches. Anyway, get to class, I'll be there shortly. And so he made his way to class, and once he got there, he started his usual routine for not talking to anyone and just focusing on whatever book he brought with him until class started. After 10 minutes, Mr. Izawa walked in and began to speak. Izawa, all right, everyone shut up and listen. Before we get started, I'm going to go over the results of your combat training yesterday. I saw the video feeds and went over each of your team's results. Todoroki, you have a lot of talent, but you need to learn how to keep a level head. Make sure to learn from your loss. Shoka, yes sir. Izawa, all right, let's get down to business. Our first task will decide your future. Everyone but Izuku, not another quirk test. Izawa, you all need to pick a class representative. Almost everyone, that's such a normal school thing. Izawa, I don't care how you decide, just don't disturb my nap. After you made your choice, you can do whatever you want. Good night. The pro that immediately fell asleep earning some sweat drops from his students. After that they all started debating among themselves. Kirishima, hey guys, pick me. I'll be a great class rep. Kaminari, I'll take it. Ida, raising his head, silence everyone please. The class representative's duty is to lead others. That's not something anyone can do. You must have the trust of every student in the class. Therefore we will hold an election to choose our leader. Everyone, it's pretty obvious you want us to vote for you. Kaminari, is this really the best idea? Tsuyu, we've only know each other a few days, how do we know who we can trust? Kirishima, besides everyone will just vote for themselves. Ida, most will, but that just means that the person with multiple votes is the most qualified for the job. Izuku just sat there still reading, not paying attention. He wasn't interested in being class rep. That would mean everything wouldn't leave him alone and would ruin his peace and quiet. So he decided to vote for someone else and just waiting until they were awarded the position, but unfortunately for him that was not the case. Election results: Izuku, 4 votes, Yayazu, 3 votes, Izuku. God damn it, how did this happen? He looked over to Uraraka and she's whistling and she looks over to him and he just sighed and just kept his composure. As for Ida, he wasn't happy that he didn't get chooses to be class representative. Ida. 0 votes. I feared this might happen, but I can't argue with the results. Momo, so you voted for someone else, huh? Sato, but you knew it was best to vote for yourself. What were you trying to prove here, Ida? Aizawa, all right, the class rep is Izuku, and our deputy is Yayazu. Izuku, emotionless face. I'm actually shocked that I got even a single vote. Momo, so you also voted for someone else? Izuku, I voted for you actually. Hearing this stunned Momo. She herself actually was one of the few who voted for him. After seeing how he took charge in yesterday's training, she figured that he was the best candidate for the job. So hearing that he voted for her had her taken aback. So now all she was thinking about was how someone as calm and collected as him thought that she was better suited to be the class rep, which caused her to develop a noticeable blush on her face. Momo blushing. Why you think I was right to be class rep? Izuku, I just picked the first person that could into my head, but maybe it'd be best not to say that. Yeah, sure, I guess. Momo, cough, well thank you, but results are results. I'm looking forward to working with you. Aizawa, alright, you all still have 10 minutes left before lunch. Do what you want until then. Except you, Izuku. 𝐶𝐿𝐵 wants to see you in her office for a little until then. Izuku, why me? Aizawa, I don't know why, she just does. Hurry up and get going, alright. Izuku, fine, whatever. After that, Izuku immediately went towards 𝐶𝐿𝐵's office. As he was walking, he thought that this may be some sort of plot to try and pry any information out of him. But there was no way he was going to let that happen. He soon arrived at her office door and knocked. Izuku, hello. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, yes, come in. Izuku walks inside 𝐶𝐿𝐵. Hello there, Mr. Yagi. Izuku angered, I thought I made it clear that that's not my name. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, oh, you, my apologies, Izuku. Please have a seat. He had calmed down a little and sat down, but he hadn't let down his guard. For Izuku, it's almost impossible to trust others even if he can see through lies. You never know when they might decide to turn on you, if anyone knows that it was him. Izuku, so why am I here? 𝐶𝐿𝐵, I ask you here to have a little one-on-one consulting. Izuku, consulting. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, I believe you talking to someone might be beneficial. Izuku, and why would you think that? I don't like talking to anyone. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, young Izuku, I don't fully understand your history, but as a hero who specializes in people with emotional trauma, I want to do everything I can to help you. Izuku, well, she's not lying at least. Alright, fine. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, good, now let's get started. First tell me, how are you feeling? Izuku, I'm fine, I guess. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, are you sure? How about when you're in class? Izuku, I'm fine, I just focus on my studies and that's it. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, is that all? You don't talk to anyone? I heard you were made class rep. You must have friends that voted for you. Izuku, I haven't had friends since I was 4. I don't know why they chose me. They're the ones who talk to me when all I want is to be alone. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, why would you want that? Not have friends can be so lonely. Everyone needs to have friends by their side. Izuku, being alone is all that I know. Besides, I believe that it would be best to not have others beside you. 𝐶𝐿𝐵, and why is that? Izuku, Because in this world everyone will betray you without a second thought if you aren't like them. Quirks are what people only seem to see in others. 𝐻𝐿, quirks aren't what define someone. Izuku, really well, why don't you try tell that to All Might? He himself knew what it was like to suffer the same pain as I did, and yet he, like everyone else, just left me there to suffer as soon as I was told I was quirkless. There was so many signs that I was being bullied, that I was depressed, that I was in pain, and yet he couldn't even be bothered to take a moment to see how I was. For so many years it was like I didn't even existed to him. All his words to the public about how everyone can be a hero and how no matter what to always do the right thing. Where was that person when I needed saving? I'll tell you where. He never existed. All those speeches, all those heroic words were nothing but lies. And my so-called friends were no different. I remember how all of used to be before they got their quirks. Me being quirkless changed everything. You asked why I'd rather be alone. Well, here's why. Because I'd rather have no one than put my trust in anyone blindly. I saw how Bakugo was putting himself down for some reason whenever we would discuss heroes and how his behavior changed towards others. And those twins, I didn't know what was happening to them at home, but it was easy for me to tell something wasn't right, and even after the bullying first began I thought of trying to help them when I said those scars on their faces. But I chose not to. All I ever did was be the best friend I could be for them, to let them know that I would be there to help when they needed it, and I trusted them to do the same. And what did it get me? Nothing but betrayal, beatings, and broken promises. So you see, I'm done with trusting. The mind reader was at a loss for words. She knew that this boy was broken by not to this extent. It wasn't his words that shocked her. She had heard this type of thing before. It was his expression that had her speechless. Throughout the small time they were taking, she saw how his face truly was cleared of all emotion and how his eyes were so dead that they almost didn't seem real. But what got to her the most was once he started discussing his past, his face and eyes went from emotionless to utter rage. Back in the principal's office, she couldn't get a good look at him, but know that they were face to face. She could clearly see the one thing this boy could feel. That feeling was hated. Yes, hated. His way of described his past, the change in his eyes as he reminisced. All there was is hated, and all because he was different from everyone else, and as a pro this saddened her. She had dealt with many patients in the past, but it never occurred to her or others just how mistreated the quirkless are. For someone so young and who was a child of heroes, Ti had this level of hatred and anger wasn't something she heard or seen before. And no, she couldn't believe that the number one hero, the one they call the symbol of peace, would allow this to happen, and it inferred her. After taking a moment to think, she composed herself and continued to try and find something that could be a sign that Izuku wasn't fully deprived of any sort of positive emotion. So she attempted to ask him about the one person that might actually have had a good influence on him. 𝐻𝐿, you say that you don't trust anyone anymore and that you don't see how you can put your faith in others, but let me ask you, what about Flash Princess? Izuku, what about her? 𝐻𝐿, you tell me, what do you think of her? I'm not asking for details about your time together. I just want to know about your opinion of her. Izuku, she's my 𝐻𝐿. 𝐻𝐿, is that all? Izuku, she's like no one I ever met. She's stronger than anyone I've ever seen. There are times when she's completely on top of things and other times when she's clueless, but more than anything she understands pain even more than I do, and so she understands me more than anyone. There are times when she can be really benevolent even to an enemy, but when needed to can be incredibly ruthless. When I tried to picture what a real hero is supposed to look like, I can't imagine anyone besides her. 𝐻𝐿, she's what? Izuku wanted to say something honest, but he couldn't, because his 𝐻𝐿 told him to never say what he wanted to ever, not her or anyone. He said it once the first 2 years that he knew her, but it didn't go the way he wanted to and hasn't said it since, no matter how much he wanted to, so he decided to tell the pro hero something else. Izuku, I can't, said to never call her that. She's the only one I believe should be the number one hero. Now the pro was beyond speechless after what she just heard. The words that he spoke didn't match his face expression at all. His eyes that only a minute ago were filled with hatred had softened to a point that there was almost a glimmer of hope. He didn't smile at all from how he described her, but the sound in his voice and the way he described her sounded as if simply thinking about his 𝐻𝐿 made him forget about his past. 𝐻𝐿, you say that you are finished with trust, but it seems to me that you trust her, Izuku. If only you knew, you're right I do, but only because she's the only one that can grant the one selfish request I ever ask of her if it ever comes down to it. Well, I guess you have a point. 𝗧𝗧𝗟. Okay, Izuku, I believe that's enough for right now, but before you go to lunch I wanted to ask, are you able to come see me again after your class are done today? Izuku, I guess today's my day off, but why again after school? 𝗧𝗧𝗟. Because someone has some news to share with you and it's important you and I want to know how you will interpret it. Izuku, fine, whatever if I have to. 𝗧𝗧𝗟. Alright, now head to the cafeteria. Izuku, alright. After he left, that 𝗧𝗏 had began going over her notes and her thoughts about today's events, but it left her with more questions than answers. All she could gather was that he thought very highly of Flash Princess. She was truly curious on just what kind of relationship that they had, and maybe by the end of today she'll get her answer. 𝗧𝗏𝗟. Sigh, I hope that it isn't too early for my plan to work. In the cafeteria, Izuku had made his way to the cafeteria. Normally he would eat his lunch that he made himself out on a beach away from anyone, but unfortunately he saw some students in his usual spot, so he decided to sit in the cafeteria for once. As soon as he got there, he found a table with enough to fit 5 people with nobody else there, so that's where he chose to sit. He then took out his bento box and began eating, but after about a minute his quiet was interpreted by Class 1A's Vice Rep. Momo? Hello Izuku, I'm surprised to see you here. Izuku? Oh hey, yeah, it's just for today. Momo, may I sit here? Izuku, why do you want to sit with me? Momo, what do you mean? Why wouldn't I want to sit with you? Blushes. Besides, we're both the class reps, so we're going to have to get to know each other. Izuku, fine, go right ahead. Momo, thank you. After about 5 minutes of silence, 2 others came up to their table. Uraraka, hey Izuku, 𝐻𝗧𝗟. Ida, hello you too. 𝐻𝗧𝗟. Oh Ida, Uraraka. Ida, can we sit here? 𝐻𝗧𝗟, you don't mind, do you Izuku? Izuku, do what you want. Ida, sigh, I'm still disappointed I didn't get to be class rep, but wanting a job and being suited for it are quite different. Observing the Ida family's hero agency has told me that much. Uraraka, agency. Hold on, what does your family do? Ida, oh, it's nothing. Uraraka, you know, I've been wondering something about you, Ida. Admit it, Ida, you're a rich boy, aren't you? 𝐻𝗧𝗟, wait, are you? Ida, I was afraid people would treat me differently if they knew about my family. Uraraka, 𝐻𝗧𝗟, I understand that completely. Ida, you see, the Idas have been pro-hero for generations. It in our BLD. Uraraka, what? That's awesome. Ida, are you familiar with the tube hero, Ingenium? 𝐻𝗧𝗟, isn't he the pro with 65 sidekicks working alongside him at his Tokyo agency? Ida, he's my elder brother. Uraraka, your family's famous. 𝐻𝗧𝗟, that amazing. What do you think, Izuku? Izuku just sat there eating, not paying attention, but he couldn't help but think about what exactly 𝗧𝗏 was up to and how was this person that was going to give him this news that 𝗧𝗏 wanted him to know. But soon 𝐻𝗧𝗟 broke him out of his thoughts. Momo, Izuku. Izuku. Izuku, yeah, what is it? Momo, what were you thinking about? Izuku. Nothing important, Uraraka. Hey, what are you eating? It looks homemade. Izuku, yeah, it is. Uraraka, did you make that yourself? Izuku, yeah, Momo, I didn't know you can cook. What is it? It looks delicious. Izuku, it's a bacon miso soup and nori bento. Momo, it looks incredible. Ida, yes indeed, how are you so good at cooking? Izuku, it not important. Uraraka, oh come on Izuku, we know nothing about you and we're classmates. Momo, yes please Izuku, let us get to know you a little. Izuku, sigh, alright fine, I began teaching myself how to cook when I was 5. Momo, how come? Izuku, so I wouldn't go hungry. Ida, but what about your parents? Izuku, I didn't have any to rely on. Ida, but what about your sister? Uraraka, oh yeah, didn't she say that you were related? Izuku getting angry, I thought I made it clear I don't have a family. No, drop it. Ida, but Izuku. Momo, wait Ida, if Izuku doesn't feel like talking about his upbringing then we should respect his privacy. Ida, why yes you right 𝐻𝗧𝗟, I apologize Izuku. Izuku, yeah, don't worry about it. As the 4 continued to chat, someone was watching closely at Izuku's direction. It was Shoka Todoroki. She wanted to go up to him and join in the group and hopefully start to make omens. After a few seconds she started making her way toward the table, and once she was there it got the group's attention. Shoka, Tiger, I seat here. 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐿, oh hello Todoroki-san, sure have a seat. Ida, yes please join us. But Izuku wasn't having any of it. For him, seeing his former friend was just a giant reminder that he was betrayed and that people can't be trusted. All he saw when he saw her was someone who just stood by and let everyone torment him for years, and it infuriated him that they allowed someone like her to be a hero in training. And so he immediately packing up what was remaining of his bento and was about to leave without giving an explanation. Izuku irritated, I'm leaving. Momo, what? Izuku began walking away. Shoka, Izuku please why? But she was cut off. But the school alarm going off. Warning level 3 security breach. Please leave the building in an orderly fashion. But all the students started panicking and shoving each other. Izuku tried making his way through the crowd and to find what was causing this security breach. As everyone was on pushed each other, someone was shoved into Izuku and the two were continued to be pushed into each other. It was Momo 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻. Momo, oh sorry Izuku. Izuku, don't worry about it for no. Damn it, just what is happening? Momo, I don't know but we have to. But she couldn't finish as even more students were about to trample them, but before they could Izuku had wrapped his arms around her and dragged her towards a nearby wall. Normally he would just get himself out of the way, but for reasons he still couldn't understand his body just reacted on his own, and after the whole thing with Todoroki and now the student panic, he just wanted this day to end and didn't really care that he's protecting and practically cuddling a girl right now. Momo tomato red, Izuku. What are you doing? Izuku, you wanted them to trample us. Momo, no, but still but Izuku's attention was outside as he looked out a window and saw the cause for this how thing. Izuku, so it's the damn press. Hey 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐼𝐻, can you make a bullhorn? Momo, what? Yes, but why? Izuku, just make one, I need to stop this. Momo didn't fully understand what he was talking about, but she compiled and did what he asked. Once she was done, Izuku had started activating shadow control and used his own shadow and slides his entire body into it. 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻 saw this and was in disbelief. She was surprised during the practice training, but Izuku just kept on surprising her. The shadow that started moving through the wall and made its way to the middle of the ceiling, and then Izuku had popped out his upper body with the bull horn in his right hand. Izuku, will you all shut the F up? Everyone then stopped panicking and looked up to see their fellow student upside down inside a shadow on the ceiling. Izuku, look outside, it's just the press. They all then looked out and saw that he was right and had calmed down. Izuku that made his way down through his shadow and popped back out thought another wall. Once he was out he was then crowded, but some of his classmates. Kirishima, Izuku bro, that was so manly. Uraraka, that was amazing. I didn't know you could do other stuff with your quirk. Tokoyami, yes your quirk interests me more and more. Ida, yes I agree, as expected from the one chosen to be our class president. Momo, you're quite full of surprises Izuku. Izuku really wasn't expecting praise for what he did since he clearly made it known that he was completely irritated, but he just composed himself and just take the compliments, he really didn't care anymore. Izuku, yeah thanks I guess, let's get back to class. Everyone, yeah let's. Izuku, Dan there loud, I didn't want this job but I don't have a choice now. 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐼𝐻, you coming? Momo, for what? Izuku, I have class presidential duties to do no. So I'm gonna need my vice rep. Momo had forgotten that she was the vice rep, but after hearing that she felt a little happy that Izuku made it seems that he needed her. In her eyes he was the most capable student in their class. Momo smiling, yes of course, let's go. Time skips to the end of the day. Izuku had finished his classes for the day, but before he could go home he had to make his way to the Tsuna's office for whatever she wanted. As he approached her office she sensed the presences of someone else in there. He knew who it belonged to and it was someone he didn't want to see. He was able to leave before going inside, but 𝐻𝐿𝐿 had opened the door before he could. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, oh Izuku please come in. Izuku angry, what is she doing here? Inko. Hello Izuku. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, now Izuku let just relax. I call you here because your mother has some news that I believe you should know. Izuku, what is it? Just get to it so I can go home. Inko sad. Izuku, please, isn't there any way I can convince you to come home? Izuku, with someone like you there is no home. Forget this, I'm leaving. Telep, no wait. Gee, you just tell him that we discussed. Inko, alright. Well, you see Izuku, I'm going to be working at UA starting tomorrow. Izuku irritated, are you kidding me? Inko, Izuku language. Izuku, not only it was bad enough that I had to deal 5 out of the 6 of the people I hate the most in this school, but now I have to deal with all of you. Inko, please Izuku, I know we've hurt you, but please let make it up to you. Izuku, shut the hell up. You don't understand a thing. You have no idea how deep my pain goes. Get it? Thought your head we were never a family, and I don't want one anymore, especially not with people like you. Turns to Telep, can I go now? I don't want to be here anymore. Telep, no, we still aren't done, we still have one more thing to discuss with you, and it about Flash Princess. Izuku, what about my MSTR? Telep, I believe you should say it. Inko, sigh, alright. Izuku, is there really no way you will let us about the time you and Flash Princess spend together? Izuku, I already told you no. Inko, well, I guess we can only as her in person. But I'm sorry Izuku, but it probably won't be as simple as that. Izuku, just what do you mean? Telep, well, Izuku, she did choose to keep a child that wasn't hers inside of going to the police. Inko, and even if you told us that it was your choice to stay with her, the authorities probably won't see it that way. She still kept you away for your us while we were worried about what happened to you. Izuku, just where are you going with this? Inko, you probably don't want to hear this, but when she returns I might have to arrest her, and I have to know just what was happening in those 3 years. I know you do want to hear this, Izuku. If you touch a single hair on her head I'm going to be wearing your guts like my emester's pashmina. Inko. Excuse me, but she couldn't finish because after hearing that his former mother was planning to allegedly arrest his emester, Izuku started to slowly emit miracle aura. But unlike before, his chi was filled with a murderer's intent. The chi that he used before were just for intimation to get them to leave him alone, but in this case he couldn't even think about anything for him. Anyone, no matter who they are, threatens his the only person who gave him a chance. It enrages him to a point where his anger surpasses his towards his former family. He then got up and slowly started walking towards her and got right in her face. Izuku, cold hat-fill eyes, I'm sorry. Did I stutter? I said if you try to touch her, you will experience pain and torment beyond anything you could possibly imagine. Your body will be torn apart, piece by piece, as you beg for a mercy that will never come. I will add your screams to goddamn Spotify, and I will see your head mounted on AF Pike. Izuku was so deep enraged that his aura had caused the two of them to sit still. They wanted to move, but they couldn't. They were terrified. For people who don't have chi, this case the atmosphere of the room to become heavy with the pressure of aura crushing them, and it felt as if they were in the presence of a monster. Inko couldn't say anything. She had a feeling that her son wouldn't be happy about what she said she might have to do, but this reaction was beyond anything she could have expected. All she could do was look at the sight of how her once kind, smiling baby boy had become this person filled with nothing but pure anger and eyes filled of only hatred for her. He looked some kind of demon, but what was going through her mind more than anything else was that this was just another reminder that Izuku is the way he is because of her. Izuku's aura continued to become more and more hostile to the point that his choker began strangling him, but he was so consumed by rage that he almost couldn't even feel it. His aura was continuing to become more and more malicious that if it continued for another 5 minutes it could potentially kill the 2 women in the room with him. But before that could happen his choker started beeping with a flashing orange button on the left side, and that snapped him out of it. You see, Izuku had installed one last function into the choker as a last resort just in case he couldn't stop him from going too far, and that beeping was the first sign of that function begin to activate. Once he heard it he stopped releasing his chi and started to relax. His choker had stopped beeping and choking and he then started walking out of the room and going home, leaving the woman speechless. Telep, I don't know what you make of that. I'm sorry Inko, I thought this wouldn't be too fast for the 2 of you, but she stopped seeing that Inko had her head down and was crying rivers. Never in the pro's life had she saw someone's eyes go red from crying in less than 10 seconds. Inko uncomfortable crying, I did this. It's my fault this is like this. I just want my son back, I just want to be his mother again. Telep hugs her, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have rushed this. As the two were having an emotional moment, Izuku was on his home riding the train. As he was sitting down, he was looking out the window, taking the sight of the sun began to set with his thoughts. Izuku, I wonder, somewhere in Eastern Europe else two people were discussing the end of their first mission and strategies for their next since the people they were hunting down had gotten away. Kaori, I'm sorry, but it looks like they got away. Dan, I really thought we had them, and after all that time gathering information and tracking them all the way here. Well, nothing we could do about it, no. For no, let's just focus on using this time to return to our homes and recover and prepare for when the next time they'll appear. Yeah, you're right, it has been almost a year since this mission started and I'm started to miss Japan. Well, I'm heading to my room to sleep, I'll be seeing you. Yeah, have a good rest. Sight. I wonder, Izuku/Kaori, I wonder what's MST/Izuku doing. Time skip class 1A, we're in the middle of fire PRD when Shota had an important announcement. Aizawa, today's training will be a little different. You have 3 instructors. Me, All Might, and another faculty member will be keeping tabs on you. Sir, what kind of training is this? Aizawa, rescue. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, stuff like that. Also, what you were in this exercise is up to you. But keep in mind that you haven't gotten used to them yet, and they might limit your abilities. Well, be busy to get there, so start getting ready. The students that started making their ways to the locker rooms and changing into their hero suits. Once they were all finished, they had matted in the bus, but before they could leave, the 3 students on reserves had gotten on the bus at the last minute, but they were only in their uniforms. Aizawa, these 3 will also be tagging along but will only be observing. Go on, hurry up and sit down. Izumi, yes sir. The bus that began to move and the students had started conversing among themselves. Azui, hey, there's something I've been wondering for a while about you guys exactly. Izumi, oh us. I'm Azui, just call me Izumi. Oh okay Tsu, what did you want to ask us? Azui, I wanted to know why aren't you guys in class 1A like the rest of us? Yayazoru, actually I was wondering about that too. Izumi, oh I'm sorry but I don't feel comfortable talking about it. Azui, but it's really unusual. Katsuki, she said, doesn't want to talk about it, so shut up. Izumi smacks his head. Katsuki, stop yelling. Katsuki. Whatever. Azui, actually there was something else I wanted to ask about you. Everyone then turned their heads to Izuku, but to their surprise he was napping in his seat the whole time and somehow no one had noticed. Just then the bus had stopped and Aizawa told them to get off. Momo then began to wake up Izuku. Momo, Izuku. Izuku, Yawn, are we here yet? Momo, yes we are. Izuku, okay. Thanks for waking me up. They all had gotten off the bus and started at the sight of the giant building in front of them. They all started making their way inside and were soon greeted by someone in an astronaut suite. Hello, everyone, I've been waiting for you. Uraraka, wow, it's 13, the space hero. I can't wait to show you what's inside. Kirishima, holy CRP. It looks like some kind of amusement park. A shipwrecks. Landslides. A fire. A windstorm. I created this training facility to prepare you to deal with different types of disasters. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. But you can just call it USJ. Aizawa, hey, shouldn't All Might be here already? Apparently he did too much hero work on the way to the school this morning and used up all his power. Holding up 3 fingers. Izuku, so that bastard used up his time already, well better for me at least. Okay, before we all get started let's go over a few things. I'm sure you're aware that I have a powerful quirk called Black Hole. I can use it to SCK up anything and turn it into dust. Uraraka, yeah, you've used it to save people from all kinds of disasters. That's true, but my quirk can also easily be used to kill. The space hero then began expanding in great detail about how some of the students could also have powers that could be dangerous. And how in the superhuman society all quirks are certified and stringently regulated and that often people overlook how unsafe they can be. Depending on the person using it, they could lose focus or make a wrong move when using a deadly power. Luckily for them, thanks to Aizawa's fitness test, they all had a solid idea of the potential of their quirks. Once 13 had finished his expression, the class besides the reserves were about to start their rescue training, but before they could, a purple-like mist started to show up a few yards away from them. And as for Izuku, he started to have a bad feeling in his stomach. He remembered what that mist was and could sense two familiar presence coming from that portal. Aizawa, stay back, don't make a move. Kirishima, whoa. What is that thing? Wait, has the train already started? I thought we were rescuing people. Aizawa, this isn't part of the training. Those are real villains. Izuku, damn it, I was right, it's them. Aizawa, 13, keep the kids safe, I'll fend them off, right? Aizawa had strapped on his goggles and ran in the direction of the villains, and the students started behind 13, trying not to panic. But it wasn't easy since none of them had been papered to be attacked by villains today. And as for Izuku, he was just standing trying to come up with a plan to deal with them, since it was clear, at least to him, that they all had to write. Izuku, okay, we're swarmed by villains, too many of our 2 teachers to handle alone, and most of our group are idiots. So what to do? Nah, it's future Izuku's problem. Shadow control. It gives the user the ability to move in and manipulate shadows, such as using to hide in their or others' shadows, using them as restraints or spikes to impale enemies. The shadows can become stronger by absorbing any light that forms them to make them darker. However, they are the most powerful at night. However, with less light in the night, it takes longer for the user to gather the shadows together and to power them, and with so much darkness in night, it can become easy for the user to lose control over them, which makes using this power at night for more stealth missions. Dark enhancing. Dark energy surrounds the person, which increases their physical traits up to 50%. But if the person incorrupted by anger, they will gain an additional 30% more straight, but will lose all control of their emotions and go berserk. Delete. Gray like smog is generated in their left hand, and by touching anyone, their quirk is erased for a whole 3 minutes. The time limit can last longer depending on how long it is charged. But if charged for a whole 10 minutes, the smog will go from gray to black and their quirks will be erased completely. However, the user can be affected by this as well. Memory transfer allows you to see the memories of other or shows them your own. However, if the memories you see or show are negative, the user or others will feel all the negative feelings and pain from those memories. Emotions, psychological and physical pain. Whoever sees those types of memories will feel every one of those feelings. Pain transfer. By making skin contact, the user is able to take any amount of physical pain and wounds of anyone and transfer it to themselves. Emotions pain can also be transferred, but the user must first have the person's complete trust and faith, but only a small portion of can be taken. If all the emotions pain is taken after 5 seconds, it all will return to whoever it was taken from, but it will be several times more traumatizing. Dark blue light allows you to shout out 5 shots of dark small blast of energy out of the palm of their right hand. It takes 5 seconds to recharge between rounds. The bullets can't, however, pierce surfaces like steel or stronger. Black price can summon a black sphere that hovers above an enemy and presses them down with 3x times normal gravity. The amount of spheres that can be summoned is limited to 4, and the gravity affected is also limited to about 3 meters around the target. However, the gravity doubles depending on the number of spheres used. Share. The user is able to give others the ability to use one of any quirks that they might have, up to a maximum of 4 people. However, they must divide the power of that quirk evenly between the amount of people they choose, and it only lasts for 5 minutes. Dark blessings. Taking the dark energy of 𝐻𝐿 and giving it to any number of people the user chooses by touching them. The dark energy shared can increase the power of others' quirk slightly. If you're confused at like how Naruto shares his chakra with others, however, the user must sit completely straight and focus so the shared power doesn't disappear, leaving the user unable to fight. Merge can take 2 separate types of quirks and combine them to create a new type of power, but the quirk must be compatible with each other, and whatever is created is only limited to the user imagination. And finally, new quirk created only lasts for an hour, and then the 2 power users for the Mard can't be used again for a whole day. Sealing, able to seal or release any seal, also capable of binding the quirks of others, and it lasts for a week. Can also seal physical damage 20 minutes, but this quirk can only be used on others and can't affect the user. All of you already know what it does. Naruto, It engulfs anyone the user chooses in a black sphere that traps them in a person's of their worst memories and makes them relive those memories 100 times for every second inside along all the pain and emotions they felt when those memories first happened. It can only be used for 5 seconds. The user can also influence 𝐻𝐿 by engulfs themselves with whoever they choose to in person, and by doing so can even make them relive their memories instead. However, the price for doing this inside is 𝐻𝐿 will take a little piece of the user's humanity. Mortal Flame Fist. Fire that engulfs the user's fist and that are purely elemental and insincere almost anything they touch. The fire can't escape from the user's first, however, and if the temperature isn't regulated they could potentially turn a human to ashes in one hit. But this does make the user immune to fire. Darkness Flame. From the user's right arm can summon pitch black fire that engulfs and burns away anyone and anything they touch. The black flames can't be put out by anything until they have turned their target to ash, even capable of burning other types of flames. These flame can be manipulated to make a sword or a spear if properly controlled. However, these flame are the most powerful of all of Yang's abilities and are the most difficult to control and can even turn on its welder, making them the only fire that can burn the user. Finally, these black flames have one final technique that makes it potentially the most deadliest attack and is only meant to kill an enemy as a last resort and only if no one else is in the direction of the attack. But if used beyond the user's limits can make their right arm unusable for days. The students were still just starting there as their homeroom teacher went and confronted the villains. Some were scared, others were contemplating about if they should go down and help, and as for our protagonist, he was coming up with a strategy since he knew that a fight was inevitable. Especially since he already knew who was attacking them. As he was thinking, out of the purple portal came a guy with light blue hair, wearing a black t-shirt and black braids and covered in hands, and a guy made purple mist. To only Izuku's knowledge, it was exactly who he thought it was. Tamura Shigaraki and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, but that wasn't all. Alongside them was what looked to be some sort of genetic bird monster. Tamura, what the? 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, it doesn't look like AM is here. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, yes, you're right, I wonder why. But take a look, Shigaraki, our other target, is right up there. As the students and teachers stood still near the main entrance, some were wondering why the 𝐻𝐿 alarm wasn't going off, to which not even the sensei had the answer to. Just then the male Todoroki spoke up with a theory. Shoto, isn't the entire campus under attack? Or is this their only target? Either way, if the alarm system isn't working, then one of these villains must have a quirk that's masked their presence. They carefully chose this isolated facility as an entry point at this time when a class was being taught. They're fools for trespassing here, but they've thought this out. Whatever their plan, they must have a certain objective in mind. As some of the students gasped at the realization, Izuku had an order of all of them and the space hero. Izuku, 13, you get the kids out of here. I have a feeling that they might have jammed the regular communications too, so Kaminari, try using your quirk to contact the school. Kaminari, why yes sir. Shoto was about to make his way towards the first swarm of villains, but before he could, Izuku tried to convince him to change his mind of facing them alone. Izuku, are you out of your mind? You can't fight them on your own. Even if you can nullify their quirks, your fighting style's not suited for this. Their numbers will surely overcome you. Shota, you can't be a pro if you have only one trick. Then Mr. Izuku takes a big jump down and begins fighting off the villains while canceling out their quirks. Izuku, idiot. Even if he can hold some of them off, he won't last long. Hey, all of you, guards up, we're about to have company. Also, I have an order for all of you. If you want to stay alive, get as far away from me as possible. Momo, what are you talking about? Just then 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 appeared before the students. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, there's no escape for you. It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves in. We are here to make sure the symbol of peace takes his last breath and also to capture you. Izuku Yagi. Izuku, damn you. Once the villain had finished speaking, almost everyone was at a loss for words. Not only were they still in shock by being invaded by villains, but now to hear that they came to kill the #1 pro hero, and to top it all off, they also knew and came to capture their class rep. As for Izuku, he was in a tough spot. Not only is this past coming back to haunt him in front of his new classmates, but also now they know what his old name was and that he and his useless sister are related. But beyond that, at this point it's possible they're gonna want answers about how these villains know him, and that was something he wanted to avoid at all costs. The only other ones who weren't surprised were his sister and former childhood friends, since they knew already about his encounter with them 3 years ago. However, only Izumi knew the real truth and why they probably want to capture him now. She was also trying to figure out what to do since they threatened to kill her father and to take her brother away again after he had finally came back but couldn't figure anything out. Izuku wasn't doing any better. He could easily use his chi to keep him at bay. But his MSTR warned him about using it against non-chi users since it was easier to kill people with chi even if you aren't a complete MSTR of it. And in this case he was said that one of his biggest secrets was just exposed and he wasn't confident that he could control himself enough to use his aura without crossing the line and would go against his beliefs on heroism. Just then Bakugo and Kirishima charged at the mist villain. As a big explosion that was caused by Bakugo covered the walkway with smoke. Kirishima, did you think we were just gonna stand around and let you tear this place down? 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, you live up to your school's reputation. However, you're still just children which I easily dispose of. However, turns head to Izuku. I don't want to take my chances with him here. I wouldn't stand a chance. Izuku could sense that 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 was about to make a move and turned towards Ida and gave him an order. Izuku, Ida. Get out of here, run to the exit and warn the school. Ida, what? I can't just leave you all here. Izuku, just go, damn it. If you want to be a hero, then do what's best for everyone right now. Just then the villain began covering the students in his mist, and so everyone had began being transported to different locations in the facility. Izuku then began falling and landed into a pool of water. Izuku, water. So I must be in the fluid area. What's this QI? Izuku then began sensing someone swimming toward him with his jaw opening. Villain, first catch of the day. Nothing personal, kid, but you're gonna. However, the villain couldn't finish as Izuku had began releasing his chi as to let him know that he was the one in danger, which he clearly and quickly understood. Villain scared, this kid is dangerous. Izuku then started to activate his dark enhancement and kicked the shark villain in the face, which ended up knocking him out. Just then something had wrapped around Izuku's waist. It was a frog tongue. He then turned to see Tsu swimming up along with Mineta and started dragging the two of them on top of a boat. Tsu, Izuku, are you alright? Izuku, yeah, I'm fine. Tuss, what about you, Mineta? Mineta crying, are you kidding? We're under attack by villains, we're separate by our teachers, no pros to protect us. We're all gonna die. Slap. In that instant Izuku began slapping him silly. He was already tired of his crying. Izuku, will you shut up? Mineta, why should I? We're never getting out. Slap. Izuku, you crying isn't helping, we need to focus on getting out of here. Mineta, and how are we supposed to? Slap. Izuku, just shut up. How did you even get into a hero school in the first place? God, you're pathetic. Mineta, will you stop? Slap. Izuku, I said shut up. Mineta. Tuss, Izuku, I think he got the message. Izuku, good, now both of you be on guard, look over there. The two looked toward the water to about a dozen villains sitting and waiting by looking back at them. Tuss worried, what are we going to do? We're outnumbered. Izuku, it's fine, right now we have the upper hand. Tuss, what do you mean? Izuku, haven't you noticed? They're staying still and waiting. From what I can see, it doesn't look like they don't know anything about us or what our quirks are, or they would have come charging at us already. Tuss, how could you be certain about that? Izuku, because of where we are and that you're here. Tuss. Izuku, if they did have information on us, then why would they send you here? Wouldn't it make more sense to send you to the fire? Tuss realized. You're right, in this please, I have a big advantage in the water. As the villains were becoming more confident that they were able to take on the 3 first-year, Izuku had alright thought of something to get themselves out of this. Izuku, listen, you two, I have an idea, but I need one thing first. Mineta. What? Izuku, can you play enough ball out of your head to stick all those villains to each other? Mineta, wait, you want to fight those guys? Are you crazy? Well, die if we. Izuku, unless you want me to slap you again, answer my question. Mineta, I believe I can. Izuku then started throwing them in the water, Once they're all stuck, 𝗧𝗓, I wanted to keep 𝗀𝐻𝗃 wrapped with your tongue and hang on to something. 𝗧𝗓, but what are you going to do? Izuku, there's no time, just do it and then just watch. The two of them weren't sure on what he was playing, but neither one of them had a plan of their own and decided to just trust him. 𝗀𝐻𝗃 then started throwing his sticky ball from his head and launching they towards the villains. After throwing about 30 balls, his head was left bleeding as a result of his quirk's drawback. Then the frog girl had wrapped her tongue around him and had started hanging on to rails of the both as Izuku instructed. After all the villains were now stuck, Izuku that began channeling chi into the bottom of feet and jumped off the both. His two classmates were shocked at what he was doing, but then were even more shocked at what happened once he hit the water. Instead on landing in it, he was starting on it. 𝗧𝗟. 𝗀𝐻𝗃, he's standing on water. This was a technique that his MSTR taught him 2 years into their training. By forcing 15% on his chi into the bottom of his feet, it allows Izuku to be able to stand on water or even walk on walls. As everyone was waiting to see what Izuku would do, he unsheathed his sword and took a standard kendo stance and started activating his ken. He was worried that this idea of his would ended up causing him, everyone and even the boat to be swept away, but at the same time he thought this might be the quickest way to get back to main entrance. He needed to deal with Shigaraki as soon as possible before he ended up killing anyone. Izuku, 𝗀𝗃 told me not to use both hands when wielding my sword, but I can't waste time. And so Izuku lifted his sword overhead with both hands and swung it with all his might. The force was so strong that it had caused a massive wave, and just as Izuku feared, everyone including the boat had started to be swept away by it. And now everyone was heading in the direction back to their teachers and the main villains. Else where the other students were having their own battle to deal with. In the mountain area, Yaoyorozu, Kaminari and Jiraiya were going up against 8 villains. As they were trying to figure out a strategy on how to beat them and get back to their class, one of them hadn't been focusing as they were wondering about the meaning of the villain's other objective besides killing All Might. It was their Vic class rep. She was worried as to why the villains were also targeting Izuku, but what had her more unease was the order he gave all of them before they got separated. But there was no more time to think about it as the villains started changing at them. So she had made weapons of herself and Jiraiya, and alone with their human light blue readied themselves to fight. As for the Todoroki twins, they were still at the main gate with their own fight. Izumi was with Uraraka and Mina began protected by the space hero while fighting off Kurogiri. Mountain area villain. Hey, not hard feelings kids, but you all have to die. Kaminari panicking. Dan, these dudes are terrifying. Jiraiya, could you maybe take it down a few notches? Right now we need to focus on getting away from these enemies. Kaminari, then give me a weapon too. Jiraiya, you're the one with election powers, just zap them so we can run. Kaminari, were you not paying attention during combat training? Some partner you were. I can cover my body in electricity, but if I try to shoot it out it'll go everywhere. I'd take you guys along with them, or do you all want shock treatment today? I'm counting on you too. I'm no help in this situation, you've got to get us out of here please. Jiraiya, you're a really damsel in distress, aren't you? One of the villains then started attacking Kaminari. As he was backing up, Jiraiya pushed him forward and the villain was being shocked by his quirk. As for Jiraiya using her earphone jack and her costume support item, she caused a sonic boom to counter another enemy. And Momo with her quirk created nets in order to capture the others, and the two of them directed their foes in Kaminari's derision to shock them. Momo, we're lucky that worked out so well. Jiraiya, I'm sorry, next time I'll ask before saying out butts. As more and more villains began to swarm them, Momo had finished peppering something she had came up with to protect them. And so out from her back popped out a giant blanket which caused both her and Jiraiya's body for head to toe. Momo, sorry it took a while, it takes longer to make something this big. Villain, a blanket. Is that supposed to be a shield? Momo, you're looking at a sheet of insulation 100mm thick. Go Kaminari. Kaminari, badass. He then released all his electricity in one shot which lighted up most of the mountain zone. After the light show, all the villains were paralyzed and Kaminari was left more stupid more than he usually is. And as for the two female students, the creation user had most of her costume ripped but didn't pay much attention to it as she was sitting worrying about her class president. Jiraiya, I think you're a little too exposed. Momo, it's fine, I can make another costume. But I'm worried about the rest of our class, especially Izuku. Jiraiya, Izuku. Why him specifically? Momo, didn't you hear what the mist villain? He said they were here to capture him. Also remember what Izuku said earlier. Sure, yeah you're right. But what do you think he meant? Momo, I don't know. But I believe he meant that he plans to keep himself isolated so the villains only focus on him and so not to get us involved. I'm worried that he might decide to fight the main threat by himself and I don't want him to get himself captured or worse. Jiraiya eyebrowing her. You seem to have gotten really close to him after only knowing each other for a few days. Momo slight blush. Oh, I wouldn't say that. As Jiraiya was teasing Momo about her concern about their anti-social class rep, they saw something out of the corner of their eyes. It was in the direction of the flood area. Landslides zone both Shoka and Shoto has insistently freezing their enemies as soon as they were warped away. It seems as the villains were going to kill them as soon as they arrived. But unfortunately they fail. Villain number 1. Damn it, they froze us the instant we warped here. Villain number 2. Those two aren't kids, they're monsters. Shoto, how do they plan to kill All Might? At first I thought they gathered a force of elite criminals to overpower him. But most of them are just low-level thugs. But that not all, just what do they want with Yagi? They said they were here to capture him. Are they connected to the villain M and G told us about? Shoka, from what I can tell there are only 4 or 5 dangerous people. If that's the case then what we need right now is more information. But we need to hurry, I have to get back to Izuku so I can protect him. I don't know what they want with him, but I won't tell them near him. Shoto then walked up to one of the villains trying to intimidate him in order to pray information on their plans to assassinate AM. But Hen Shoka got his attention and points to the fair left of them. It was a little far from where they were but in that direction they saw something big and blue that looked to be rising. Main entrance Izumi, Uraraka, Ida and some other students were still being protected by 13 as he was going up against Kurojiri. Izumi wasn't much help as she couldn't decide to either stay and help he teach her or go find her brother. Uraraka wasn't doing any better as she was feeling and thinking the same. And Ida was contemplating on if he should stay and help or go back to the school and bring backup as Izuku instructed him to. 13 then activated Black Hole and started pulling Kurojiri into it, but unknown to the rest the villain already had a counter-do deal with the space hero. Kurojiri, Black Hole, the quirk that esses up matter and turns it to dust, such an astounding power. However you're a rescue hero 13, skilled at saving people from disasters. Consequently that means you have little fighting experience or battlefield awareness. The villain then opened a warp gate which she used to turn the pro's own quirk against him and destroyed his back. The students were frightened now as their teacher had gone down and they had no fighting experience of their own. Zero then began saying something to Ida. Sor, Ida get out of here. Go hurry. Ida was angry that he couldn't do anything to fight back but then remember what Izuku had said before they got separated. If you want to be a hero then do what's best for everyone right now. And so he began running towards the exit. Kurojiri tried to stop him but his fellow classmates joined together to help him escape. Izumi had used her quirk to pull the villain back while Uraraka grabbed onto his arm to make his physical body weightless. And finally his tape dispensers restrained him long enough for Ida to get outside and making his way back to UA. As for Eraserhead he had finished talking out most of the small fries and then turned his attention to their leader. Shigaraki then began to change at him but the underground hero managed to get a solid hit in his gut, or so he thought. Shigaraki had been paying close attention to the way Shota fought and discovered a weekend in his defense. Once Shota had got in close range he got a hold of his elbow and started to decay it. Shigaraki, it was hard to see when you were jumping around but I found your tell, it's your hair. Aizawa surprised Shigaraki, when it drops it means you stop using your quirk. You're having to blink more often. Shota backed away from him and what was left of the underlings were starting to gain up on him as he was weakened. Shigaraki then started taunting the pro about how he was better suited for sneak attacks instead of talking on a big group. Shota was beginning to realize that maybe he should have listened to Izuku and not have done this alone. But even with one working arm he was still able to fight back and Shigaraki started pressing him for how he was still able to hold his own. Shigaraki, well look at you still standing, you really are so cool Eraserhead. But I have news for you, I'm not the final boss. Just then, the giant bird-headed monster that came with them had popped up behind the hero and gotten a hold of his left arm and punched him in the back, causing him to go face down to the ground. Izawa erasing the monster's quirk but didn't do a thing, and he had gotten his other arm stomped on. And then the bird villain started crushing his head and used his remaining foot to stomp on Izawa's back, making his chances of walking away almost zero. Shigaraki, he's the modified anti-symbol of peace, but you can just call him Nomu. You can erase people's powers, that's irritating, but it's nothing special. When faced with true devastating power, you might as well be a quirkless child. Izawa. I'm positive I erased his quirk. That means he's super strong even without powers. I think he's as strong as All Might. Shigaraki was enjoying watching the hero begin beaten down, thinking he had already won. Soon after, Kurogyari worked next to him after getting away from the students. Shigaraki, Kurogyari, did you kill 13 already? Kurogyari, the space hero is out of commission. But there was a group of students that I couldn't warp away, and one of that got away to get reinforcements. And Shigaraki just lost it. He had started scratching himself and began throwing a tantrum like a petulant child. Shigaraki angry, Kurogyari, you fool. If you weren't our means of escape, I'd tear apart every less atom in your body. Well, nothing we can do about that now. Tell me, what about the other one? Have we captured the brat yet? Kurogyari, the amount of pawns that we stationed where I sent him should have captured him by now. Let us head over there and now and see if... Before he could finish his sentence, everyone started to feel a rumbling beneath their feet, and as they looked towards the water, they saw a massive heading in their direction. As they looked up, they saw their comrades that day had stationed in the flood area to capture Izuku and a boat being swept by the giant wave. The students that were staying by 13th side also saw the wave approaching in the direction where their homeroom teacher went to fight the villains. And at that point in time, everyone that could see it, that they were near or far from the main entrance, all had the same thought in their heads. Everyone, what the hell? And so the massive amount of water engulfed practically everyone that was near the pool. All the remaining pans were knocked out. As for Shigaraki, he was still conscious but was on the ground with some of the hands that were on him gone. Izawa has been moved to right by bottom of the stairs leading up to the main gate, but was still unable to move and was coughing up in dripping blood from his head. The Nomu wasn't affected so much by the wave, and as for Kurogyari, he seemed to be nowhere to be seen. As for the students, Uraraka and Mina and a few others stayed by 13 side since he was still out of commission. Izumi, however, went over to where 𝐀𝐮𝐿 was afraid of what could have caused that wave. As she was running, she ran into Yaoyorozu and the Todoroki twins, all coming from different directions. Shoka/Shoto/Momo, Izumi/Yagi. Izumi, hey, all of you made it here too. Shoto, tell me, are you okay? Izumi, I'm fine. However, 13 was injured. What about all of you? Did you run into any villains? Shoka, we were ambushed, but it was nothing for us. It seems that most of them are inexperienced. Momo, yes, I noticed that too. Me, Kaminari, and Gyre didn't take long to deal with our fight. But Kaminari won't be able to fight due to him Quirk's drawback, so Gyru is watching over him. Izumi, oh, I see. But most importantly, we need to go give Mr. Izawa backup. Also, I'm worried about what could have caused that massive amount of water. Momo, yes, I'm wondering about that too. The four of them began making their way to the flood area. Once there, they saw Shota near the bottom of the stairs and 𝐬𝐿 and Minato a few feet away from him, dizzy from their crazy water ride. The twins ran up to their teacher, while Momo and Izumi ran to their other classmates to if they were okay and see if they knew about what had happened to them. Izumi, hey Tsu, wake up. 𝐬𝐿, still dizzy. What happened? Izuku, 𝐬𝐿, it's us. Tell us what happened. 𝐬𝐿, everything's still a little fuzzy. Wait, I remember. Izuku. Momo worried, what? What's about Izuku? Where is he? 𝐬𝐿, Izuku. He did all this. Izumi/Momo, what? He did. 𝐬𝐿, yeah, we were on a boat surrounded by villains, and before I knew it, Izuku had made a force with his katana so stronger it swept us all away. Izumi, my brother did all this. Just how stupidly strong is whatever that thing inside him is. Momo, Azui, tell us, where is Izuku now? 𝐬𝐿, I don't know. He should have been swept away with us. Minato, hey, I'm okay if anyone is wondering. All three, shut up, we're talking. Minato crying. Shoka, Hey, watch out. The three girls heard Shoka's cry bet before they could turn around the head. Another voice only inches away from them said, maybe if I killed you that'll draw him out. They all turned their heads to see Shigaraki only inches away from them and was about to lay his hands on 𝗏𝗏. The girls were feeling shocked, confused and scared all at the same time, especially the frog girl. Even though she didn't know what his quirk was, she could easily tell that she was about to die. But just before his hands could touch her, all of a sudden the ground beneath their feet became black. And in that instant what looked to be two spears made of shadows had pierced through Shigaraki's hands. Shigaraki screaming, Momo, what is this? Izumi, 𝗏𝗏, do you know what just happened? 𝗏𝗏, no. As the girls were starting to get even more scared about what they just witnessed, they said what had caused the ground to blacken. It turned out that it was Azui's shadow that had expanded around the girls. As they were still confused as to what was going on, the frog girl's shadow started to move and separated away from the girls and toward Shigaraki. The students, the villains, the ice twins and even Shoto, with what little straight he had left, all looked to see the shadow had stopped a few feet away from Shigaraki, and in that moment someone started rising up from it, and to everyone's surprise it was Izuku. Shigaraki looked as his target was now face to face with him and was now seeing firsthand just how he had made good use of 𝗏𝗏𝐺 over these past 3 years, and at this point he was beyond said, so much so that he almost forgot about the 2 blood dripping holes in his hands. Shigaraki. Izuku, you still have that childish attitude of yours. Izumi/Momo/𝗏𝗏. Izuku. Shoka, Izuku, you're here. Shoto, but what did he do? Momo, Izuku, what was that? Izuku, after we washed up her I went inside Azui's shadow. I need to the elemental of surprises since I didn't know what this guy's quirk was. Shigaraki, you really have a good handle on that quirk. But that won't be enough to stop me. Izuku then raised his right hand and began directing his chi towards Shigaraki. Shigaraki didn't know what was happening, but he was somehow pushing him back. He couldn't move any closer to him, he was afraid to. So out of instinct shouted, Nomu, capture this brat. The monster charged at Izuku. Izuku tries using his chi to force him back, but something wasn't right, it didn't work. Unannounced to him, the Nomu was nothing more but a modified flesh doll with no consciousness or will of its own, so Izuku's weaponized life energy won't have any effect on it. The bird villain was about to bring Izuku into an embrace that would crush almost all the life out of him, but before they could be captured he divided down into Nomu's shadow and used dark restraints to stop the monster. However, his strength managed to break free from his bonds. Izuku was shocked, but there was no time to think as the villain was about to strike back. But before he could make contact, Izuku had activated his high-speed technique that he named 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, then enhanced his body and punched the villain in the chest and got some distance between the two of them. Just before the Nomu could make another move, Izuku had drawn his sword. He then started to surround the blade in darkness and sworn it, dark cloak slash, Izuku thought as he attacked. The slash cleaved right through the Nomu's torso and had separated it in half. Momo, my god. He cut right through him. Shoka, Izuku did it. Izumi, brother, what did you do? Shigaraki, sorry to disappoint you, but that won't work on him. Izuku, what? Just then the Nomu started regenerating its lower body and was soon back on its feet. Izuku, how in the hell? Shigaraki, he has the powers of shock absorption, but that's not all, he also has super regeneration. Izuku, hey, all of you, grab Mr. Aizawa and get out of here. Momo, what are you saying? Izuku, what part did you not understand? I said to get yourselves and our teacher out of here. Right now he's got 1 foot in the grave. Shoka, but what about you? Izuku, did none of you listen to what I said before? Fine, then I'll say it again. If you want to stay alive, then make sure you're nowhere near me. Now get out of here. Izumi, no, I'm staying. I won't leave you. Shoto, she's right, we're not going anywhere. Izuku, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, still the same mindless simp you always were. But there was no more time for talk as the Nomu began charging at Izuku again. He managed to avoid it by using his 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 again. However, he couldn't think of a plan to deal with the monster's quirks, but what got him more worried was the fact that his classmates were still there. Even though half of the people that made his life miserable were there, and even if he didn't take them to with all his heart, he still had enough goodness inside him to have respect for human life. But unannounced to anyone, there was one more important reason why she wanted to fight alone. In the small time that he's been enrolled in UA, He had the idea that maybe he doesn't have what it takes to get this dark power under control. Izuku had come to this conclusion within the past few days since the incident with his former mother, when he let his anger almost completely consume him and let his aura almost take her life. In the past he was about to get under control quickly, but in the short amount of time he's been at that school, the failsafe that he built into his electric collar was so close to going off. He knew that eventually it might have to resort to that extreme measure, but he didn't think it would almost happen so soon. And ever since then he has begun doubting himself that he can keep himself together and not cross the line no matter how many precautions he took. So in this fight, a part of him is thinking that this was the perfect opportunity to get rid of that risk once, and more importantly to once and for all 𝗀𝗱𝗏𝐻𝐻 out of this world for good. On the sidelines, 𝗀𝗱 had picking up their homeroom teacher and was going to get him out of harm's way, then come back to discuss strategy, but his sister without thinking launched a way of ice towards the villain in order to help the boy she secretly loved. The ice had frozen the monster's entire left side and had caused both of its arm and leg. However, once again it instantly started to regenerate its lamps, and Izuku just looked back and yelled at them once again. "Izuku, you dumbed asses, what are you still doing here? It's me they want, hurry up and leave, you can't beat this thing the way you are now." "Shoka, no I won't. I won't leave you here alone." Nomu then turned his attention to Shoka and was about to attack, but just in time Izuku had began using Black Press at full power and started pressing the villain was 15x gravity. But just then 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had reappeared and opened a warp gate and transported Nomu and 𝗀𝗟𝐱 right beside Shigaraki. "Izuku, damn it, just when I had that thing. Momo. Izuku, do you have multiple quirks? Izuku, right now is not the time. And for the last time, get out of here. Momo, we can't leave you here to just be captured. Izuku, in case you all forgotten, Mr. Aizawa is going to croak if you don't get him help. Izumi, he's right. 𝗀𝗏𝗟𝗏, please get Mr. Aizawa away from her, well, stay and defend Izuku. 𝗀/Momo, right. Izuku, you blithering idiots, how many times do I have to say leave?" As Azui and Momo were running to 𝗀𝗱𝗏 as 𝗀𝗱𝗏 moved to stand beside his sister and get ready to fight, but just tell Shigaraki had given his mindless doll the order, "Nomu, kill those two and their teacher." And just like that, the monster instantly began moving as fastest all might towards the two girls and their half-dead teacher. Izuku was the only one among the group that could see his movements, and in that instant his body had began moving on its own and he activated his 𝗀𝗏𝗏. And as he was about to intercept the giant bird, he had a sudden thought in his mind, Now I can end this curse. Splat! It was as if time had stopped in that moment. 𝗀𝗱𝗏 for once looked like he was worried. Both Izumi and Shoka couldn't speak and their tenor were overpowering their tears. But the ones who were the most on the verge of being traumatized was Momo, Azui and 𝗀𝗱𝗏. Was in front of their faces was their dark class rep who successfully shelled his teacher and classmates, but with the Nomu's hand that almost penetrated through his stomach. The three of them were beyond speechless as they were looking at Izuku's back with 4 out of 5 of the villain's fingers piercing right through it with them dripping blood. If not for him being a user of chi, the monster's strike would have already killed him. Even though chi greatly increases a person's defenses, they are still capable of taking damage. Izuku's along with everyone else's blood when cold, his sister was see all the moments of their lives together flash before her eyes, and as it was every single ounce of guilt, regret and sorrow began hitting her all at once at the sight she was witnessing. 𝗀𝗱𝗏 couldn't believe what was happening. His plan at first was to just defeat the enemy, but now in this moment the reality that he couldn't do anything but just stand there like a coward as the boy who he used to torment on a daily basis jumped right in and sacrificed his own body without hesitation, the same boy for he used to call his best friend. Azui was in a state of pure fear. She couldn't move. She knew being a hero would lead to events like this happening eventually, but she never thought it would happen so soon and that she would be completely helpless as someone else had to save her. Shoka was frozen stiff. It was like her worst nightmare come true, what she never hoped would happen again, what she vowed would never happen again. She just stood there doing nothing as the one she loved was hurt. But this time it was worse. This time it wasn't by her own choice. There was nothing she could do. She was powerless. But the one whose worry and fear that could possibly compete with hers was Momo's. It was like fear itself was keeping her sitting there paralyzed. She had only known him for a short time, but for reasons she still couldn't fathom ever since the day she saw him rescue that little girl she believed that he was like no other. Throughout this whole ordeal in her head thought that if it was him he would instantly knew what to do, and ever since their first battle training she constantly asked herself, what would Izuku do? But right now there was no way she could answer that question, as right now the person who she thought was arguably the strongest and most clever of their class was standing in front of her as nothing but her human shield while she could only look and watch. And as for the victims himself, after a few seconds all he could do was cough up an alarming amount of blood which caused everyone to snap out of it but began to panic. Everyone! Izuku! Shigaraki, Nomu, capture him now! The monster was about to pull his hand out of Izuku's stomach, but just then something happened that no one expected. Izuku had grabbed onto the Nomu's right so tightly that he managed to draw a little blood, and Izuku had started emanating even more darkness than usual. Yang was already aware of what Izuku was planning and started sending a massive amount of its power through his body like waves, and then started speaking in his mind, I thought I told you already, it's a big problem for me if you get yourselves killed. And so Izuku had activated delete, and then he pulled Nomu's hand out of him himself and gave the villain a look that would give anyone nightmares and began to speak in a murderous voice. Izuku, sorry you're strong, but not strong enough to kill me. And so Izuku's dark enhancement had activated but had gone beyond 50% to 85% with he combined with his mortal flame fist. And so Izuku had gone completely berserk and rapidly bunching the bird villain. The force of his hits were so intense that Kurojirai tried to warp himself in and get in the way but couldn't. Everyone was astounded and scared by the power Izuku had and how his rage had taken over him. All they could do was just stood there, see the sight of the Nomu being beaten down by Izuku's assault. Shigaraki and Kurojirai couldn't understand what was happening. Unlike their boss, they were in dark and all of Yang's abilities, and so couldn't understand why Nomu's quirks weren't working. Izuku's fire was incinerating his enemy's body, and with every bunch the fire was getting stronger. Izuku's choker was practically strangling him, but Yang's power and influence was overcoming his pain. Izuku was like an animal attacking a defenseless person in the wild. All he could see was red. Yang's negative influences had almost completely taken over his mind, but before he could lose his complete control he heard someone's voice that managed to reach him, "Don't die, Izuku." It was Momo. All this time she just stood there doing nothing while he did all the fighting, all the planning, and even going so far as to sacrifice himself for her and the others. She had realized after seeing the power of the Nomu that he was the only one who could stand up to it, but even though she knew she couldn't do anything to fight, she thought that the least she could do was cheer him on. And it worked. Izuku managed to hear her carries for him and get back enough control to strike on last final punch on the villain, but was about to retrain himself enough to not kill him. Instead he sent the bird brain through the other side of the USJ, cussing the monster to go out of sight and leave a hole the size of a truck. Once the dust was settled everyone was silent for a minute until Shigaraki began throwing another childish temper tantrum. Shigaraki, no, you cheater. And you was supposed to kill All Might. He was about to launch himself at Izuku to kill him, but just then Ida had arrived with All Might, his wife, and a bunch of other poor heroes in tow. One of the pros, Snipes, fired 2 shots at him before he could reach the boy, and the 2 villains had no choices but to retreat. Once they were gone, All Might and 𝐻𝐮𝐭 were astounded at the sight in front of them as the rest of their peers went to go find the other students that were scattered around the factory and arrest any of the villains that were out of commission. 𝐻𝐻𝐭 had looked around and saw her son standing there in the middle of the battlefield with the top half of his hero costume almost completely torn, his fist emanating smoke and blood coming out of his torso and mouth. All Might saw this too and both rushed to him as fast as they could. Izuku on the other hand was bracing himself for the next thing that was going to happen after every time he received an injury, but before anything could happen he had started sensing that his teacher's life force was becoming even more dim. She had an idea, although she knew that if you went through with it would probably leave him in worse condition, but at this point he didn't care about his own life. Izuku, Mr. Aizawa, I can barely feel his QI. I only have on last Shuinpar in me, god damn this is going to hurt. He thought as he used the last of his strength to move so fast to everyone else it seemed as if he teleported in front of Mr. Aizawa. Once he was next to him, Momo and Azui both began fussing over him as they were unaware that their teacher was close to death. Izuku, what's the matter? Momo, Izuku, oh my god. You need help. Izuku breathing, no. I don't. But I. Well, after this. He then crouched down and placed his hand over 𝐀𝐮𝐻's back, leaving everyone confused. Aizawa breathing, Izuku. What are? But he could finish as he started to feel his pain going away. Izuku had started using his pain transfer on him. Both the girls were watching this and were in disbelief as the two of them thought that he also had the power to heal people. That was until they looked at Izuku himself. All the wounds that were on 𝐀𝐮 were disappearing but then began to reappear on Izuku instead, and as a result Izuku had began to caught up more BLD, and Momo, despite not knowing exactly what he was doing, figured out that if Izuku took his hand away it would stop. She tried to take his hand away but he was determined to say his teacher. He had taken away half of his pain, leaving his right arm and leg useless and BLD now coming from him head, but just before he could take the other half he has started to feel a different kind of pain. Izuku's burning regeneration had started to kick in and steam started cut out of all his wounds and they had began healing, but it left him holding his stomach with his one remaining working arm and screaming in pain. Everyone was scared about what was happening to him and they tried to figure out what to do to help. But after about a minute Izuku had stopped screaming and had collapsed to the floor. Time skip 3 days. Izuku and Aizawa had both been admitted into the hospital after the invasion. 𝐀𝐮 was doing up in a day thanks to Izuku and would be out in a few days due some more help from Recovery Girl. As for Izuku, he still wasn't awake. The doctors checked his condition and couldn't understand that despite all his wounds were healed he was still a coma-like state. Inko, Toshi and Izumi were at the front desk demanding that they see him, but they weren't permitted due to the fact that Izuku had put down his boss as his emergency contact, and on the notice it also started that those three and his old childhood friends weren't allowed to see him. It used to be his 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐵, but he had to such it after she left on her mission and still hasn't come back yet. As this was going on in the real world, in Izuku's mind he was being taunted by YNG for the stunts he pulled during the raid. Izuku's inner mind: why, you didn't really think I would let you get away with this? Izuku, I had a feeling getting rid of you would be so easy, damn it. Yang, I told, didn't I? I still have to see what you'll decide. Until then I can't have a brat like you ruining that until then. Izuku, just what the hell are you after? What exactly are waiting to see? Yang, I'm still waiting to see if anyone can understand what darkness really is. But unfortunately, despite everyone being born, no one seems to comprehend it. It's the failure of you humans. Izuku, just what do you mean by that? Yang, you humans are all the same, constantly spreading conflict throughout the world. No matter how centuries passed, you all somehow find a way to spread hate. Even in this age of so-called heroes, the evils of humanity ever disappears. The evils of humanity were here long before I even existed, and it's still here today. Izuku, you're right. Yang, what? Izuku, you're right. As someone who's seen the ugliness of humanity, I can't argue with your statement. The world is the way it is because of humans. We did this, it's our fault. And I'm not sure if it can be fixed. Yang, well, at least you can admit it, at least you have that on most humans I've seen. But I can't have you dying just yet, time for you wake up. And with that Izuku had woke up and was breathing heavily as if he had woken up from a bad dream. Back in the real world, Izuku's parents and sister were standing demanding to see Izuku. As they were arguing with the nurses, Kyoko Kurosawa had arrived as well. An hour ago she had gotten a call telling her that Izuku was in the hospital, and aside from being his employer she had gotten close to Izuku since not only was he very punctual when it came to his work, but also he also managed to have a positive influence on some of the children, even though it seemed that he himself didn't know it, and also he is her best friend's #1 student. Kyoko, hello nurse. Yes, can I help you? Kyoko, yes, I'm here in see a boy named Izuku. I'm his emergency contact. Nurse, name please. Kyoko Kurosawa. Izuku's former family had this and were confused as to who this woman was, but were more angry that some random stranger was allowed to see him and not them. As the nurse was telling Kyoko what room her employee was, the three of them had stopped her to confront her. Toshi, hold it. Kyoko, yes, can I help you? Inko, just who are you? Kyoko, excuse me. Who are you? Inko, we're Izuku's family. Kyoko, serious? Oh, so you're the ones. Izumi, what the hell is that supposed to mean? Kyoko, I'm aware of who you all are. Let me guess you're all upset that he isn't allowing you to see him. Inko angry, just tell us who you are. Kyoko, I'm his boss. He put me as his emergency contact in place of my best friend Kaori. Toshi, why wouldn't he let us see him? Kyoko, are you kidding? I'm well aware of what you all have done. Are you actually surprised that he wouldn't let you him? Do you actually believe that he could just forget about all those years of pain and sadness just like that? The three of them were silent for a moment, since they knew that what she was saying was true, and all were thinking just how many times are their sins going to come back and hunt them. As they were taking that in, the doctor that was looking after Izuku came to inform Kyoko about Izuku's condition. Doctor, hello, are you Kyoko Kurosawa? Kyoko, yes I am. Doctor, I have news about Izuku's condition. He still won't be able to walk for another 4 days, but he has just now awakened. Kyoko, am I able to see him? Doctor, yes, go right ahead. The Yagis, hold up. We want to see him too. Doctor irritated, look, for the last goddamn time, if he requested for you not to see him, then that's it. That's the law and there's nothing we can do, so just expect that and stop causing a scene or I'll have to call the police. The three of them were infuriated by this but accepted, as it was clear there was nothing they could do. Kyoko then began making her way upstairs to Izuku's room. Once she had made her way to the 3rd floor, she walked past 3 rooms until arriving at Izuku's room. As she stood in front of the door, she watched as Izuku just sat there on his bed looking out a window with a blank expression on his face. But just then he called her out, as he could sense her standing there. Izuku, are you just going to stand there all day? Kyoko. Kyoko, I should have known you'd notice me. How are you feeling? Izuku, like CRP. And it looks like I won't be able to go into work for about a week. Kyoko, don't worry about that, you just focus on receiving. You know the kids also heard about you, what happened and how you defeated a strong villain and defended your class. Izuku, I'm guessing UA couldn't keep the news quiet. Kyoko, yeah, pretty much. Izuku sarcastic, great, just what I needed, more eyes on me. Doctor, oh Mr. Izuku, how are you feeling? Izuku, oh hello doctor. I feel terrible but at least I'm up. How long was I out? The doctor then began telling them that Izuku was out for 3 days and that he won't be able to do discharged for a few more. He then asked Izuku how his wounds were healed in the first place, and he told him that he had a regeneration type quirk. But what they were more curious about was the bandages covering Usuper's right arm. During the time they examined him when he was brought in, no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't remove the bandages, almost as if they were glued stuck to his arm. What most people didn't know was that those bandages were created by his emissary and imbued with chi, so that nobody could take them off normally unless they used chi on them first. Izuku just lied to them and say that it was an injury that still hadn't fully recovered and that someone had used a cork on the bandages so that they wouldn't be removed until it was fully. It sounded sketchy at first to them, but the doctor seemed to butt it. But then Izuku had a question of his own. Izuku, doctor, tell me, who left those flowers? Doctor? Oh, those were from 2 girls that came to see you yesterday. One had a black ponytail and another one that was shorter and had brown hair. He was surprised to hear this. He already knew who it was that left those flowers for him after the doctor's description, but it was still unexpected to him. The next few days he had spent his time just laying in bed. Occasionally someone would bring him a book to read since his phone was destroyed during the raid, and once I got out he had to go get a new one. The nurses kept informing him that the Yagis and Shoka Todoroki kept trying to come visit him, but every time they did he would turn them away. As for his classmates, unannounced to him, they were still shaken from the attack and were being kept home by their parents until school started back up in another week. On his last day it was 5:30 in the afternoon and he had just finished changing and was about to make his way out of his room until Shota came to visit him, since he was also being discharged today. Izuku, Mr. Aizawa, what are doing here? Aizawa, I'm getting out today too and I thought you would like some company. Izuku, I guess I wouldn't mind. Aizawa, oh, I believe this belongs to you. Hands Izuku his sword. Izuku, so you had it this how time? Thank you, sir. Aizawa, don't mention it, let's get going. The two of them then began making their way towards the front entrance. Along the way, Shota had thanked his student for not only protecting his class but also saving him from certain death. He had asked him how he was able to do that, since Ki noticed that what Izuku did wasn't healing, so chosen to just tell him the truth and explain that one of his quirks allows him to take away the injuries of others but transfer them to himself instead. His teacher was shocked by this and had lectured him that it was a reckless move to do and could have endangered his life even more, but Izuku just remained silent, not really paying attention, because even if he was the person he used to be, he still would have chosen to do it. Izuku had decided to keep his sword inside his own shadow. He figured out that he could do this when he was inside Azui's shadow. The two were about to go out of the hospital. They had heard something on the TV in the hospital's lobby. The two turned their heads to see that someone was on the live news fighting some sort of monsters all by themselves in 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐚 City. And Izuku was beyond shocked to just who it was. 1 hour earlier in the upper part of 𝐻𝐮𝐬, it was just like any other afternoon and everyone was just going on about their day. But unknown to them, the so-called peace that they were used to was about to be interrupted. Up on the rooftops there was someone looking down upon the unsuspecting public. This person had arrived in Japan about a month ago following an escape from heroes in Eastern Europe. They had made contact with a different group of lowlifes that ruled over the underworld of Japan and had provided them with a group of 5 modified monsters. It was the League of Villains, and during this time this new enemy was provided with 5 different low-level 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻. After taking a moment, he had given 4 out of the 5 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 just one order: spread out and kill. And so they had jumped down from up above and began attacking innocent civilians and destroying businesses. This had gone on for about 20 minutes, and only some of the less experienced pro heroes were around the area doing their best to fight them off, but unfortunately they were no match for the enemy's super strength and whatever other quirks they might have had. It seemed that quite a few people were about to die before any of the stronger pros would show up. That was until each one of them were struck in the back by a light sword piercing right through them. All the other heroes that were about to be defeated looked up to see someone was floating above their heads and looked to be engulfed in light. Hero number 1, look up, what is that? Hero number 2, I think that's Flash Princess. Yes, that right, Flash Princess, or rather Kaori Kanzaki, the number 3 pro hero, had finally returned to Japan after over a year. Kaori, Jesus, I just got back and there's already a giant mess for me to clean up. I didn't know what those things are. I better wrap this up quickly. And in an instant she instantly started sending out a barrage of light swords towards each of the villains. However, with the massive population of people around, she had to limit their speed and power as to make sure she didn't hit anybody. Unfortunately, they were able to dodge the attacks and began making their way to another part of the city. 3 of the 4 that were ordered to attack could fly and were trying to overpower her from the sky, while the one on the ground followed them by foot. But unfortunate for the ones up above, couldn't land a single hit on Kaori. With her mastery over one alone, with her own style of fighting, she evaded all of them. To everyone that was watching both in person and on TV saw how gracefully she moved through the air. It was like watching a professional ice skater dancing with the wind, her twirling around as if she was putting on a performance but still focusing on the enemies. All eyes on her could see clearly what she had earned her nickname as the Flash Dancing Princess of the battlefield. She had followed the 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 to a plaza in the middle of the city, which was usually meant for tourists. The civilians were already aware of the monsters heading their way and evacuated the area. The 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 had surrounded her Flash Princess in a square formation, hoping to get the upper hand on her, but unfortunately it didn't go as planned. Before any of them could make a move, she had charged her power up to 50% and created 4 light swords, each pointed in the direction of them, and shot them like lightning bolts, which instantly killed them. Normally, as a hero, she wouldn't have gone so far, but she could tell that those things weren't any ordinary villains and that they weren't even alive. And soon after, she has called out to the person who was watching her from the shadows, "Hey, I know you're there, come on out." And so the person who first commanded them to attack had appeared right in front of her with his last remaining 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 by his side. "I had a feeling you know I was here. Kaori, you're not very good at masking your bloodless 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 of the 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫. So why don't you tell me why a European organization would be in Japan, and what exactly is that thing? 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻? Oh, come on, you should know why we're here. Besides you, we have another target and we already know that he's located here in Japan. And as for this thing that you're referring to, it in the others you just destroyed were gifts from another group that we're working with. They're called 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. Kaori, 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻. Takashi, as much as I would love to explain everything to you, I am afraid you're out of time." And in that moment Takashi had gotten into a sort of Buddhist stance, and then some sort of black rods that popped out of the 4 corpses of the 𝐻𝐻𝐻𝐻's body appeared, some type of black spears that were implanted inside their bodies. That wasn't all. Once they had appeared, they all started forming a square formation and had surrounded the two of them and the 𝐴 inside a barrier. But it wasn't just any barrier, it was a barrier made of 𝐬𝐻. Once the two were trapped inside, the villain then tossed would seem to look like a bomb, but instead was a container filled with some sort of poison which leaked out and began enveloping the barrier, but for some reason was only affecting the numbers 3 pro hero and not the others. Kaori coughing. What? This. Takashi, it's a type of poison that I'm immune to. I'm well aware that in your past time as an assassin that you're immune to almost all type of poisons. That's why I had someone conducts this new type that you have never experienced before. It won't kill you instantly, but in this barrier there's nowhere for you to escape. Kaori, if you think this barrier will keep me here, but she soon noticed that something was wrong. Her quirk wouldn't activate. Takashi, sorry, but it's no use. You see, in this barrier anything besides chi is completely useless. This is my chi ability, pure aura barrier. It makes anything that isn't chi unable to do any harm to those inside. However, in order to keep it intact, I have to stay in this stance at all times without moving a muscle, and I must have those rods planted in the ground in a certain formation, not to mention a third party that could fight my enemy for me before it even activates. Kaori, nothing except chi work in here. Takashi, that's right, it's too bad. Really, you used to be feared as one of the best assassins to ever walk this earth, and now look at you. Playing hero has made you soft. Kaori, damn you. Takashi, also don't bother trying to escape. You see, this isn't just a simple barrier. The way it works is I abandon all offense and focus on defense, which is part of my contract with conditions. Meaning that the only way for someone to actually be able to break out of this is if they had immense physical strength along with mastery of their aura. Which means the only way that you could break out of here is if you were in top form right now, or if you were an enhancer. Too bad you're not. Kaori, cough, but then cough, that means cough, you're a manipulator. Takashi, very perceptive. Back in the present time, some of the news stations and less popular pros were watching this, but they couldn't begin to understand it. To them, they were just standing there talking, since none of them could see the barrier since they weren't users of chi. Some of the other pros and their sidekicks tried rushing towards the villain to lend backup, but they were instantly repelled by the barrier. Everyone was scared and confused, but in another part of Japan, only one person could see clearly what was going on even through just a live footage on TV. That person was Izuku. He could clearly see the square cube of chi that was surrounding his MSTR and this mysterious villain and no move that was surrounding them. Back when they were still training, he remembered that his emissary had informed him that no matter how strong the quirk of someone may be, it can easily be overpowered or even nullified completely, which she depending on what the user's ability was. And she also mentioned that that logic also applied to the two of them, even with the two most powerful quirks at their disposal. As for Kaori, she had fallen on her knees due to the effects of the poison. If she could just escape, she could have had time to find a way to cancel it out while using her quirk to keep her alive, but right now she couldn't. She was at her wits' end, she had no backup. No one outside could break through the barrier, and finally she was about to be prey to the last remaining monster in front of her. But just then she remembered something important. She turned her head towards the reporters that were filming her life and gestured them to come closer so anyone who was watching could see her clearly. Everyone was confused as to what she was doing, but the reporters reluctantly got the message and did what she wanted. And so with her two hands she had made a hand sign and began saying something to her enemy, which no one on the outside could hear since the villain's chi barrier also blocked sound. All the while Kaori was thinking, God, please let him be watching. Back in the hospital, both 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐸 and Izuku were watching as the person Izuku respected the most looked to be on the brink of defeating. He never thought that the day would come when he would see her like this, and the worst part was that there was nothing he could do. But just then he was that they were getting a close-up on her, to which you could see her making a sign with her hand and started saying something. There was no sound, but he could clearly see her lips move to the point where he could read them and tell exactly what she was saying. Back to the battle. Kaori, let me tell you something about heroes. No matter what people may think, the bottom line is we're only human, but in this short time I came to learn something. What really makes a hero isn't what their powers are. All a true hero really needs is the guts to never give up and keep people safe no matter what. Back to Izuku. Izuku had read her lips and understood everything she had just said, Ever since she left, he had started to develop feelings of doubt towards himself, thinking that he didn't have what it takes, so follow through on his promise to himself of becoming a hero. But after hearing his MSDR's words, it became clear to him that he had forgotten what really mattered, why he made that vow in the first place, and why he begged her to train him when he didn't even know her. Just then he saw that the Nomu was taking a stance and was about to charge at her, and Izuku was beyond frustrated and had punched one of the hospital's pillars, which left a crack in it. "Aizawa, kid, what's wrong with you?" "Izuku, god damn it, how could I have forgotten something like that? That's it, I'm going." "Aizawa, what?" "Izuku, my MSTR needs me." And so he had made the same hand sign as his MR was doing, and his teacher had noticed that on his right shoulder there was a mark placed on it that began to glow a bright light, which soon started to envelop his entire body. To see just before she had left for her mission. Kaori had branded Izuku with a mark with the kanji symbol for instant and flash right onto his shoulder. The marking was part of her original quirk, with that mark placed on him provided the ability for each of them to instantly teleport to where the other one was, provided they both already knew the other one's exact location first in order to ever lend assistance if needed. And by imputing the mark with chi, it was able to stay on Izuku permanently. And so had instantly disappeared out of the hospital, and just as the Nomu was about to pounce, a light instantly started to appear between the two of them, and out of it Izuku had instantly been teleported inside the barrier and had punched the Noom right in the face with most of his strength. Kaori at first wasn't sure that her ideal would work, but since her power was also combined with chi, she figured it was worth a shot, and it seemed that luck was on her side since she was right. Takashi, the other pro, the reporters and everyone watching were beyond confused as to what was happening. Some sort of invisible force field that repelled anyone from the outside, and now someone else had appeared in the middle of this confrontation, which some of them recognized as to be the boy who had defended his class a week ago from villains. As the Nomu had picked him up and was waiting to be given another order, Takashi started to address the boy directly. "Takashi, no, it can't be. You're the one." Kaori smirk. "My little hero has finally arrived." Izuku took a moment before turning his head to Kaori. Even though he dreamed of the day when she would finally return, he didn't want it to be like this. "Izuku, you and I are going to have a very long talk after this is over." "Kaori, I know." "Takashi, so it's you, the one with the dark half." He looked at Takashi for a moment and took in all his surroundings. And it was like he thought his quirk was ineffective in here. And even though he didn't show it right now in this moment, his level of rage was beyond it had ever was before for seeing what this guy had done to his MSTR. "Izuku, you know I didn't think it was possible, but you somehow managed to do it." "Takashi, I did what exactly?" "Izuku, cold dead eyes, you have Minya mentally psees me off even more than my old life, and that's why you're about to lose." This cold, sinister feeling even gave Takashi chills as Izuku had began admitting more powerful chi than he had ever did in the past. In secret, while Kaori was away, Izuku had been practicing his own chi ability, which relies on aura alone and abandoning any assistance from Wenji. He had never used it on anyone before, but he figured there was no better test than this was right now. Izuku, 8 Forbidden Seals, 5th Seal of Awakening release. While the battle in Upper Hosu was reaching its climax, many others were watching the fight from either their homes or somewhere else, from many civilians to other pro, everyone from the orphanage, and even our main protagonist's classmates and former family. They all watched the number 3 pro hero as she was fighting all on her own, but then soon was in a state of helplessness. They were shocked to see her like that, but then were beyond baffled as to who had suddenly appeared between the hero and the villains. They witnessed Izuku just appeared right in the middle of everything, and all of their hearts sank. In every single one of their homes they were all just in a panic after seeing him appear. Yagi residents, the Yagi family, were all in their living room watching this and couldn't believe their eyes. At first they just watched as Flash Princess was dominating the battle at the beginning and then somehow was on the verge of losing. Toshinori and especially Inko were surprised that she just appeared after a year, but were also thinking that no, they could confront the woman that had kept their son from them. As for Izumi, she didn't really know how she felt about the hero that had kept her brother. But right now all they could think about was why he was there in the first place. Toshi, what? No, why is he there? Inko crying, Izuku. Izumi, be brother. That the Bakugos, it wasn't any better. Katsuki and his parents were watching and they didn't know what to think. Katsuki just looked to see as Izuku just pop out of nowhere and just saved one of Japan's best heroes. As for Mitsuki, she was feeling all sorts of things. Confusion, joy, sadness, but mostly surprised to see that Izuku was alive. And Masaru just didn't know what to say or think. Mitsuki, Katsuki is that? Katsuki, just what the hell is going on? Why is that nerd there? Mitsuki grabs his collar, so it is him. Did you know? Answer me, Katsuki. Katsuki. Yeah, I knew. Mitsuki Beach slaps him. You damn brat, why didn't you say anything? Katsuki. What would be the point? And then that was it. Mitsuki just lost it. She just started punched him out of anger. Even since the day she found out what he had done, things between them were never the same. Over the past 3 years she thought that this might have been getting better, but after hearing what he said she had lost almost all hope. The only reason why she didn't completely resent him was obviously because he's her son, but beyond that, deep in her heart she thought that she was partly to blame for what happened. She felt if only she hadn't had Katsuki's ego get so out of hand and paid attention to him better, then maybe none of this would have happened. As she continued to slap him, her husband had enough and got in between them and got their attention. Masaru, well, the two have just stopped for once and shut the hell up. You might want to look at what's happening. As the two of them heard that, they were surprised that he for once actually raised his voice at them, but then their attention moved towards the TV. Todoroki home, almost the entire family was watching. Endeavor was fuming with jealousy and anger that Flash Princess has started off strong agents, multiple enemies, and now was completely defensiveness. Many because she had just gave him the number 2 spot and he didn't earn it himself. And as for the twins, both of them were just questioning the appearance of Izuku in Hosu. Especially Shoka, she had tried many times to see him at the hospital and be by his side, but they never let her in. Shoka, why is he there? Shoto, how did he even get there? Endeavor, Shoka, you know that boy. Shoka couldn't answer. She was too focused on watching Izuku and scared thinking of what could happen to him being there. As for Shoto, his feelings of him were still conflicted, but right now he was wondering just what his former friend was going to do. But then they started to see something strange happen live. As for the rest of Class 1A, almost all of them were watching and thinking the same thoughts, but there was one in particular who was on the verge for having a panic attack after seeing Izuku's appearance. The Yaoyorozu mansion. Momo was watching in her room on her laptop and couldn't believe her eyes. In the beginning of the battle, she was surprised to see her favorite hero was back in action, but then was worried that some new villain gotten the better of her. But then her heart suddenly dropped when she saw who appeared on the news. Even since the attack on the USJ, had been having nightmares about the battle with the Nomu, and in every one of them she kept on seeing Izuku impaled, but in her nightmares he doesn't survive. She visited him in the hospital once, but was too ashamed of herself to go back to if he woke up in her head. She thought part of him being injured was on her for not listening to him. She thought if she and the others had taken Mr. Aizawa to safety earlier, then maybe he wouldn't have gotten injured in the first place. It was him who jumped in the way to protect her, Azui and their teacher, and defended the Nomu all on his own, and all she could do was sit and watch. And right now the same thing was happening again. Somehow the boy who saved her had gotten into another real battle with villains, and there was nothing she do but just watch him and cry. Momo teary eyes. Izuku know why. Rose Hills Orphanage. Kyoko and the kids didn't know what to think about what they were watching. Kyoko was stunned at first to see her oldest friend had finally returned to Japan, but now all she could think about was how worried she was for her and her employee that had just suddenly appeared out of thin air. As for the kids, they didn't know what about any of the details of why Izuku hadn't been in these past few days. So they were all confused to see him on the news, but the ones who were the most worried was watching this Nozomi and 𝗀𝐿. Nozomi, still being so young, couldn't really comprehend what was happening, and she was having mixed feelings about seeing her mother in action. Not to mention that the only other person she knew connected to her was now saving her from villains. But in 𝗀𝐿's case, he was the most concerned for Izuku in the orphanages. The others couldn't see it, but he could clearly see him and the others cased inside the barrier made of chi, and was seeing Izuku's own chi beginning to get bigger and swell up. Ever since he started working at the orphanage, he has been doing his best to be a guild for him. He offered a kid that he didn't know and offered him a chance to achieve his dream, and that meant everything to 𝗀𝐿. So seeing Izuku in a real fight with criminals had him worried, But at the same time he was also excited to see his teacher in action for the first time. Back on the battlefield, everyone outside of the barrier was confused to how this random boy had come from and to what exactly he was doing. But to those inside who could see clearly what was happening, Izuku's chi had started to swell up and changing to dark green with the air around him starting to whirl around him. Takashi couldn't figure out just what kind of chi ability this was, but it was clear to him that it was a more advanced version of Ken. And by going on the rapid increase of his chi, he could tell just what type of user Izuku was. Takashi, don't tell me, this kid is an enhancer, Nomu capture them both. As the Nomu rushed over to both of them, Izuku had rushed back and began punching the Think at almost lightning speed. But unlike at the USJ, he was in control and his punches were targeted and were more powerful than when he uses Dark Enhancement. However, this ability was cursing him pain sever muscle tearing, and it also didn't help that he hadn't fully recovered and only had half of his normal strength. However, after seeing what happened to Kaori, his drive to save her was overpowering his body's pain. The Num couldn't react at all since Izuku didn't give it the chance, and because of the ability of the space they were in, its super regeneration was nullified. After only 30 seconds of confirmation, the Nomu was encompassed and on the ground not moving. As for Takashi, he couldn't risk deactivating his ability and running away since there were still other heroes out of the barrier. But he could tell by Izuku's body language and heavy breathing that he wasn't in the best condition, and despite not knowing what his ability was, could see that it was taken an even bigger toll on his body. Takashi wasn't some average fit guy, he had built his body to the point where he was even more muscular than All Might. With his build and chi, he was confident that in Izuku's condition couldn't break through his defense. Izuku then rushed toward him and bunching him, but even though Takashi could feel the power behind his blows, it wasn't enough to make him lose his position. But unknown to him, Izuku was smart enough to realize just from the live news feed and from his sticks that his defense was too great for his current level. But he still had one last trick up his sleeve. He knew if he used it now, at the very least he would have to go back to the hospital. But to him, saving his Emther saw the only important thing, so he stepped back a foot away from the assassin and his chi began to rise even more than before, and both Takashi and Kaori had him yell, "Izuku, sixth seal of hope, release." After yelling that, he began to attack again, but this time it was different. His blows were creating shockwaves, but they weren't normal. They were red and were burning up the air, and you can believe that Takashi was feeling it now, his composure falling, and as they were clashing the barrier was starting to crack. After about 10 strikes, Izuku had gone for one first punch to Takashi's face. He had finally been moved from his spot and sent flying right through his barrier. Everyone else that couldn't use chi couldn't see it but could hear it crack and break. It was dead quite for a moment as everyone was trying to process what just happened, but then Izuku had collapsed in front of everyone. Once he hit the ground, a bunch of heroes and police rushes over, with half going to arrest the two unconscious villains and the other toward Izuku and Flash Princess. Hero #1. Hey FP, are you alright? Hero number 2, what happened to you? FP, breathe poisoning. Hero #2. We need to get you help right away. Breathe out. Be fine. But please, the boy, get him an ambulance first. As for me, that guy should have an antidote on him. Once everything had come down, Takashi and the Num were handcuffed and taken away. As for the teacher and student pair, they were both taken in separate ambulances and on their way to the hospital that Izuku had just been released from. Just as Kaori had predicted, the villain did have an antidote and they had already given it to her, and with the power to whine, she was already starving to get her straight back. Everyone who was even remotely connected to Izuku had a sigh of relief after the battle had ended. However, one person in particular from Class 1A still hadn't received from what she had seen. 𝐻𝐿 Mansion Momo 𝐻𝐿 was still sitting in her room on her laptop, watching with her heart still racing. Her leave of worry had gone plus ultra as she was praying for her class president's safety. After seeing the two peer were about to be transported into ambulances, she had finally reached her limit and had passed out from exhaustion. She had fallen from her bed and onto the floor, which was loud enough for her entire family to hear. Her parents Namio and Akira 𝐻𝐿 and little brother Yahiko 𝐻𝐿 rushing in. Namio panic, Momo sweetie. What happened here? Akira, worried, it looks like she fainted, let's call a doctor. As for Yahiko, he was confused about what was happening, but then took a glimpse into his sister's laptop and saw something, or rather someone he recognized just before he was taken away. Yahiko, Mom. Namio, what is it, Yahiko? Yahiko, look there, that boy. Back at the hospital, it took about 20 minutes for them to arrive. Once they got there, they were taken to separate rooms to be treated. Kaori's condition wasn't serious, so she only needed to have some minor tests done, but Izuku, however, was still unconscious, and the doctor was both suppressed and said, only because he was able to fight while still recovering, but also because he was just released and was brought right back injured again. As they were both began checked, Aizawa was still there. He saw everything that happened, and when he saw that the two of them were brought to his location, he immediately called Yue and told Nizu that they were there. Nizu had also seen the live broadcast, and once Shota had reported to him, he had contacted Detective Tsukuchi and Telep, and all three were making their way to the hospital. But unannounced to everyone, the Yagis were also on their way there, and also Kyoko with 𝗀𝐿 in tow. And as for Izuku, he was once again in his inner world with Ngi taunting him about his MSTR performance today. Yang, well, just look at you, back here again, and all because my foolish other half vessel couldn't handle a lowlife like that. Izuku, angered, shut it. It's not like you did anything back there either. Yang, if you and I were there, there's no way you would have been tricked so easy. That woman was naive and let her guard down. Just what kind of teacher call their student to save them? Izuku, my MSTR isn't perfect, but that's why I respect her the most. She understands even with the strongest quirk, she isn't the strongest herself. As this conversation was going on, Kaori was in another room talking, finishing her test on the floor above them. At the same time, the three members of Yue's staff along with the Yagis were approaching her. And Wenji could feel its counterpart presence and the negative feelings coming from its vessel's former family. Yang, well, it looks like the trouble for her isn't over. Izuku, what the hell are you talking about? Yang, it looks like that MSTR of yours is about to be confronted by those you hate the most. Izuku, what? Izuku focused his mind and realized it was right. Since the two of them were linked, he could feel what was happening too. And so he forced himself to get up, and once he ran out of his room and started running upstairs. Once he got there, he saw that the six of them were walking to the other side of the hall. He was still not fully recovered, but he pushed forward and managed to 𝗀𝐿 in front of them. The group was shocked to see him there, with Inko being the first to speak. Inko, Izuku, why you're here? Izuku. Izumi, brother. Aizawa, problem child, how are you here? Why are you here? Izuku, you answer me, what are you all planning to do? Nizu, well, young Izuku, we were on our way to see Flash Princess. Izuku, and just what are you intending to foul with her? Nizu, I'm sure you already know the answer to that. Inko, Izuku, we talked about this already. Izuku, angered, I thought I made it clear what was going to happen to you if you tried this. Inko, scared, Izuku, please. Izuku, I'm not letting any of you go anywhere near my DT. Young man, do you realize you are standing in the way of police business? Not to mention the fact that you basically commended vigilantism, which is again the law. Nizu, Izuku, please just step aside. This has to happen, and we also have some things to say to you as. But before he could finish, Izuku's chi had began to realize from his body, he couldn't keep his emotions in check. Ji heard what they were saying, but his anger and fear from thinking that his emissary might be taken away was too strong. Everyone but the detective knew already what was about to happen. They still didn't know what exactly it was, but they did know that there was no getting near Izuku when he did this. Izuku's chi then began to turn 𝗀𝐿𝐴's and began to it hard for the six of them to breathe. He was about to raise his hand and much stronger chi towards them, but just before he could, someone had grabbed onto his arm and snapped him out of it. Izuku, that's enough. You know better than this. His chi and anger had divided down and everyone was able to breathe again. Izuku had slowly turned to his left and looked to his left to see just who it was. He still couldn't believe it, but it was exactly who he thought it was, his emissary Kaori Kanzaki. This is actually an old drawing of mine. I haven't drawn in years and not as good as I used to be. He had been waiting for over a year to see her again, and seeing her in front of him now was like a dream. He was sweating bullets since his stamina was still low, but seeing her again was making him almost forgot about his 𝗀𝐿𝐴. There was a moment of silence before Izuku had finally spoken up. Izuku, 𝗀𝐿. Is it really? Kaori, yeah, it's really me. She then turned her head to the rest of them. Kaori, I imagine that all of you have many questions for me, but before that just let me have a moment with him. All of them were still shaken from Izuku's invisible force and were questioning how this woman wasn't affected by it at all. And as they were processing this, Kaori had turned back to Izuku. Kaori, I can tell you were exhausted even before you started to fight, so let me deal with this and you rest. But before I do, let me see what you've been up to all this time. Izuku. I don't know. Kaori, Izuku, let me see. Izuku. Yes, ma'am. The pro then put her hand on his head and used the power of Wen to see into Yang's history and consciously Izuku's history. She saw everything that he has been up to that involved Wenji. Some of what she saw made her proud, others made her feel sad. But the two things that shocked her the most was the electric choker that he built and the stunt that he pulled at the USJ, and his reasons for doing them. She then pulled away and looked at him with a sympathetic face. She knew that the others weren't going to wait much longer, so she just activated one of Wen's quirks. Kaori, healing light practicals, Izuku, Lester. Kaori, I healed your injuries, well, talk later, oh you poor thing. She then gave him a small worm hug before she was about to turn her attention to the others. But Izuku on the other hand had hugged back, but with more intensity. For over a year he had waited for her to return and still couldn't fully believe that she was right there in front of him. So he hugged her like he was hanging on for dear life. His didn't want to let go, as if he was afraid she would disappear if he did. Kaori could easily saw how he was acting, but she couldn't waste any more time, so she used another one of her quirks called Sleep, which causes someone to pass out instantly, but it only works if the target has completely let their guard down. And so Izuku had fallen asleep in his arms. It was at this point Inko had finally seen enough and spoke up. Inko, just what did you do to my son? Kaori, stop shouting, I just put him to sleep so he could rest. He's pushed himself way too much. Now let me just get him to a bed and then we can talk as much as you want. 𝗏𝗏, what exactly is he to you? Just why are you so protective of this boy? Kaori didn't really know how to answer that. She knew what she wanted to say but couldn't bring herself to say it. So instead she told them only partially what she felt Izuku was to her as he held him in her arms. Kaori, he's my student, and also because he is precious to me. 2 nurses had arrived and she asked them to take Izuku to a room where he could rest. As for the rest of them, Nizu had led them to a private room where they all sat together to integrate Flash Princess. Nizu, now FP, I'm sure you already know why we asked you here. FP, you all want to know about my time with the boy, right? Aizawa, correct. We also want to know about the mystery power that he has inside himself. Tried asking him before, but he stated that you ordered him to keep quiet. FP, yes, I had told him that because I wanted to see how exactly all of you would handle him. 𝗏𝗏, just what do you mean by that? FP, before I answer that, tell me in all this time what exactly is your opinion of Izuku? AM, we are the ones interrogating you, not the other way around. Inko, tell us right now what you did with our son all that time. Nizu, I have to agree we were asking the questions, but the 2 of you need to relax, we're still in a hospital. FP, please, to those of you that aren't related to him, just tell me what you think of him and I'll answer all your questions and tell you everything about my connection with him. Nizu, he seems to have quite a bit of anger issues, but as a student he does do very well in his studies. 𝗏𝗏, I've only seen him for 1 session, but for what I could tell he appears to show no emotion besides anger, but only even he recoils his past. However, there was only one time when he was calmed and actually opened up a little. FP, when was it? 𝗏𝗏, it was when I asked him about how he felt about you. When he talks about you, it's almost looked like he completely forgets about all his past trauma. For what I've seen, he seems to hold in a higher regard than anyone else. Aizawa, I have to agree, in all the time he's been at UA, Izuku seems to go through the same routine. He does his schoolwork, doesn't interact with anyone, and does his best to avoid those 3 and the others. But he doesn't act rude to anyone else. However, it's more like he acts profusely polite instead of acting like a normal teenager. But today when he say that you were in trouble, he rushed over to your side without hesitation. Also the way he fought that guy, it was easy to tell that he was fouled by his determination to save you rather than hate. Not to mention he did save me and the lives of his classmates a week ago. Nizu, There's no doubt that he has many mental problems, but as heroes it's our duty to help someone that clearly needs help even if they don't want it. Kaori listens to all their opinions on her student, and it was what she hoped to hear from them. FP, thank you all. So what's the first thing you want to know? Nizu, first please tell us how exactly you came into contact with the boy. FP, I met him on the same night he was sent away. I was chasing down a villain in a forest and found him there. The villain had decided to take him as a hostage, but he used his new powers to escape, and thanks to that I was able to capture him, but Izuku had passed out. After that I took him to my home, and that next morning he told me who he was and everything that had happened to him that day. The group was stunned to hear this, but most of them realized according to the time frame her statement was legit. D.T. Why didn't you take him to the police once you learned who he was? P. Sigh, because the night I found him I realized something important. I assume all of you are aware that Izuku is in position for a great power, which is called 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲. Nizu, you sound like you are familiar with this power. FP. That because I am, I'm sure you all want to know exactly what 𝐻𝐮𝐦𝐽 is, and I have the answers. Let me start by telling you all about my quirk first. The name of my power is called 𝐻𝐮𝐽. And with that Kaori being to tell them everything about the story of how 𝐻𝐮𝐻𝐿 came to be. How she needed to watch over Izuku in case he wasn't strong enough to resist Yang's influence. About Izuku's decision on what to do with it, and that she was the only one who could guide him. And how the two quirk chose their next holders. After she was done, everyone didn't know what to say, but after hearing her out and thanks to 𝐬𝐶𝐻𝐿's lying detection quirk, it was clear that she wasn't lying. Nizu, I'm okay. So in short, both 𝐻𝐮 and Yang's first vessels were the first humans ever to be born with quirks, and that they were at odds with each other for a period of time until their deaths. Aizawa. But even after their deaths, the quirks had developed so much to the point where they can live on in others. FP, that's correct. AM, alright, but that still doesn't answer why you chose to keep us from finding him and explaining everything to us sooner. FP, that's because Izuku begged me not to return him to you. The Yagis, what? FP, yes, that's right, I was planning on returning him for the start. However, Izuku used 𝐻𝐮𝐽 to show me his past, and after what I had seen I decided that it would be best to keep him with me, since I know better than anyone that being near you would only make things worse. Izumi, and just what the hell is that supposed to mean? We were all worried about him and thought we would never see him again. FP, I don't think you have any right to be talking about family ties, messy. None of you seem to understand. 𝐻𝐮𝐽 isn't some sort power that makes someone hate others. All it does is make its vessel feel more of what they already feel inside their hearts. Do you get it now? Izuku already had hated for you lot in him. And can you really blame him? He's only a human. Do you really expect someone not to resist people like you after everything you've done? Everyone went silent for a moment. The Yagis couldn't say anything. They knew that she was right. It hurt them inside that a complete stranger was chowing them out, and they couldn't even respond. As this conversation continued, Kyoko and 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 had finally arrived at the hospital. A nurse had told them that Kaori was occupied with something else, but told them that Izuku was resting in the upper floors and escorted them to the room he was in. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 had tried to wake him up, but he was out like a light. Kyoko had just told him to let Izuku sleep and to just wait for Kaori to get back. Kyoko had figured that some might want answers from her since after today's events. But with the integration, the Yagis were demanding that charges be brought up on her, but the number 3 pro had things to say for herself. Kaori, I would suggest you rethink that. Inko, and why is that? You keep my son from us even if what you say is true. Those actions of yours weren't legal. Nizu, Flash Princess, I understand your plight, but I'm still confused on why you couldn't at least inform UA about this. Kaori, I did it because I couldn't trust any of you, that's why. Aizawa, and why exactly is that? Kaori, tell me, let's say I did return Izuku to you, what exactly would you have done? Inko, we would have began to make up for everything we did to him. Kaori, that's not what I mean. I'm asking you, what would you have done with him and the power he had? AMI. Well, Kaori, I see you don't have any answers. And to all of you, what exactly were you planning on doing with him if you had found him before now? Would you all have allowed him to prosper heroism after going along with the most dangerous villain in Japan? Nizu, well, that's a completed issue. Kaori, don't bother, I already have a good idea of what you might have done. But I don't fully blame you since his no-good parents had kept all the most important information from all of you. However, I still can't fully trust any of you even now to leave Izuku in your hand alone. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, can you explain why, please? 𝐻𝐿𝐿, let me talk to the parents first. I looked into his past before we came here and saw that this League of Villains had the same type of monster as the ones I fought today. Not to mention that the one commanding those things is a part of a different organization that I've been hunting down for this past year, which is why I left Japan for so long. Now, if memory serves me correctly, you fought and arrested their leader the day you lost Izuku. So do you by chance have an explanation on how they would have known where to find him in the first place? Everyone turns to the Yagis since that was an extremely important question that they wanted to know the answer to as well. Site alright, about 2 months after that night I reserves a call from Tartarus that all of one had wanted to talk to me about my son. However, flashback, All Might had decided to do this all by himself. Inko had been crying and not eating so much for the past 2 months, and he figured that she didn't need any more stress. Once he got there, the guards had skirted his enemy's cell. 𝐻𝐿, I see you got my message, All Might, but I'm surprised as you came all by yourself. My wife doesn't need any more stress put on her. Now tell me what you want. 𝐻𝐿, I simply just wanted to leave with something important before I take my leave. Toshiro was confused by what he meant by leave. He was restrained with atomic machine guns pointed at him for all sides if he tried to activate his quirk. But just then 𝐻𝐿's body began to track and break apart like it was made of clay. 𝐻𝐿, you see, All Might, this body is nothing but an enhanced clone made by combining one of my associates' quirk, a body enhancement, and some other different quirks I have stolen over the years. It wasn't easy to create one that could last this long and that could withstand your attacks, but it was definitely worth it. Shocked and angry. You bastard, you tricked me. 𝐻𝐿, did you really think I would have let you capture me so easy? I'm surprised that you never questioned why I didn't look scared from our last battle 2 years ago. As he said that, All Might couldn't believe that he didn't even notice that, but there wasn't any time to ask any questions. 𝐻𝐿, it looks like this body has just about reached its limit, but before I say goodbye, let me tell you something, All Might. In a few years' time we'll be coming for your son. I'm sure he'll have taken that quirk to the next level, and I plan to make all the power mine. Before Toshi could say anything, the clone's body had completely cracked and had turned into dust. Once it did, the Amagi alarms and Tartarus had gone off and guards had rushed quickly. After a few hours of observing the dust left by the fake body, the only thing that they were able to find were traces of a telepathic type of quirk. As for All Might, he was in disbelief. Not only was he tricked by his archenemy, but also realized that he might have found something about Izuku and was now targeting him. End of flashbacks. And that's what everything that happened. Slap Inko. Toshiro, what the hell? How could you have not tell me about this? Izumi, Dad, who could you? Aizawa, red eyes, you damn moron. And I thought you couldn't have sunk any lower. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, wait, how come we never found out about this? Yes, exactly, Tartarus would have notified any one of us if that had happened. I persuaded them not to make it public. Everyone. What? I know, I'm sorry, I just panic. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't want my family to worried any more than they were. I thought I could figure it out alone. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, All Might, this is beyond stupid thinking. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, I was expecting a lot of things but not this. However, are all of you able to see Mai and Izuku's reason for not returning him to them? Above everything else we already knew, but we learned that this idiot kept one more piece of vital information from even his own family. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, All Might, if the people didn't look up to you, then I would have done everything in my power to wreck over your hero license. We'll talk more about this later. But I still want to know, Flash Princess, why exactly don't you trust to keep Izuku in our care? 𝐻𝐿𝐿, it's because you allowed her points to Izumi and her friends to enter your school. Izumi, what does that have to do with anything? Inko, don't talk about our daughter like that. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, you see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. The fact that you are still only thing about her, and all of you had allowed the person that started all of Izuku's years of bullying in a school for heroes is exactly why I didn't trust you. 𝐻𝐿𝐿, I understand you give the Todoroki girl a chance, but the rest of them is something that I can't agree with. This girl, Izuku's own flesh and blood along with all his former friend betrayed him and cursed nothing but physical, mental and spiritual pain for years. Not to mention that not a single one of them had even the decency to come clean on their own but instead just keep quiet in hopes no one would find out. And her parents aren't any better. They claim to want to make everyone up to their son, but instead of doing everything they could to find him their son, they chose to keep quiet and lie about their actions. But also instead of punishing their daughter for her actions, they chose to protect her and her friends. How could I trust people who choose to not hold those accountable for their actions? Let me ask you something. All might I know about your quirk? Why didn't you choose Izuku for it since your daughter already had a quirk? And did you still give it to her? I needed someone who I thought would have a true heart of a hero. But she turned it down. Kaori. Oh, so that tells me that you were still planning on giving it to her. You bark at me for keeping him away from all of you when you and your wife decide to protect her instead of punishing her for her actions. Not to mention all of you rewarded her by still allowing her to go to a hero school and you by being your successor when her and the others' actions were that of villains. And you actually thought that she was the type of person you were looking for. You never once bothered to get to know your own son or look into his life. Or you would have seen that he was a better fit for it. So answer me this, Nizu, what reason do I have to trust you if you allow people who ostracize their own family for being quirkless as your students and as your teaching staff? Not a single person knew what to say. What could they say? Everything that was said was harsh, but it was true. Nizu couldn't argue with her at all. He thought that they would have a complicated issue, but this was on another level. He couldn't figure out who was in the right anymore. The only one who agreed with her completely was Aizawa. He never wanted the Yagi girl nor her rest attending UA in the first place. Then the silence broke as Inko spoke up. Inko, look, I'm aware that we are terrible parents, but please, all we want is Izuku back with us. All I want is for him to be safe and happy. Kaori, you still don't understand anything. Tell me, do you remember what happened to you and Telep when you called him to her office? Inko nervous. Why, yes, I remember. Telep, I'd rather not remember. Kaori, you also remember that choker that he always wears, how it was beeped before he decided to leave? Both, yes. Kaori, that choker is something that he created himself. During our time together, I introduced him to an old friend that's an expert in creating advanced gadgets to give him something to do with his time. He made it right after I left for my mission. Inko, just what does this have to do with anything? What is so important about that choker? Kaori, he designed it to tighten whenever his anger would flare up to help control himself. But that beeping is made of something completely different. Inko, just get to the point already. Kaori, that choker is also a bomb. It was now about 8:30 p.m. and Izuku had finally woken up from the sleep his seer had put him on. Kyoko and 𝗀𝐿 were still watching over him, waiting for him awaken. As he was get up, he grunted as he remembered what happened before he was knocked out. Just then 𝗀𝐿 had tackled him back down into a hug, happy that he was alright. 𝗀𝐿 jumps on him. Izuku, you okay? Izuku grunts, Jesus kid, I literally just got up. 𝗀𝐿 hysterical. Yeah, but you just appeared out of nowhere and you were fighting, and there were monsters and… Izuku began crushing his head. Izuku, okay, I get, so will you calm down? I'm not dead. Kyoko, oh, will you just take the hug? He was worried about you, all of us at the orphanage were. Izuku puts 𝗀𝐿 down. Oh, Kyoko, you're here. Kyoko, yes, and also, Izuku, also slap. Kyoko had slapped him across the face. Izuku, what the hell was that for? Wait, that actually hurt. Both Izuku and 𝗀𝐿 see something that neither of them ever noticed. Kyoko was emitting aura. 𝗀𝐿, is that? Izuku, Kyoko, do you have? Kyoko, that's right, I can use chi too. And to answer your question, that was for worrying all of us, not to mention that I was called into the hospital twice in 1 week. I have to agree. The three turned to see that doctor that was in charge of Izuku's treatment this past week. Doc, young man, I'm used to seeing regular patients, but having one return only a few hours after being released is a first. Just what the hell were you thinking? Izuku, yeah, I know, doc, it was just instinct. MSTR needed help and I just forgot about recovering. Doc, you're MSTR. Kyoko, he means Flash Princess. Doc, oh, I see. Well, anyway, I examined you one last time and what I don't understand is somehow all of your injuries are healed. Izuku, that was because of Flash Princess. Her quirk had very advanced healing capabilities. Doc. Well, I'm surprised, but I should expect such from the number 3 Pro. Well, it seemed that you can be clear to leave, but I'm afraid that the police had demanded that you stay until they are finished talking with Flash Princess. Izuku, that's fine, I figured that might be the case. The doctor then took his left, and so did Kyoko and 𝗀𝐿 since she couldn't keep him out of the orphanage any longer. Kyoko thought that she would get the chance to talk with Kaori for a bit, but it seemed that was going to have to wait. Izuku was no alone, just sitting there quietly with only his thoughts. So much has happened in just one day for him. All he could do was wait until his MSTR was done with her integration, but little did he know things were only just getting serious. Back with the group, Inko shocked. I'm sorry W, what was that? Kaori, I said the choker he wears is also a bomb. Izumi, and no, that can't be. We have to get it off him immediately. Kaori, that won't be easy, you see Izuku is the only person who could take it off. If anyone else tries to remove it, it will blow. Everyone went silent again. They were expecting so many things, but this was beyond anything they could have imagined. They all asked the detective if this was true, to which he replied yes, which only added to their shock. So what do you suggest we do? Just have him keep something like that around his neck? Kaori, no, of course not. Believe me, I don't approve of his decision to make that thing at all. But before anything else, I want all of you, especially the Yagis, to try and fully understand why he made it in the first place. And so you can all see just how much damage these 3 have caused. Inko, what exactly do you mean? Kaori, tell up, I'm going to allow you see into my mind so that way everyone can grasp what I'm trying to say. Use your quirk to show everyone what I'm about to show you. Tell up. Alright, I will. Kaori, good, now tell me, are any of you familiar with the incident that happened in Shinjuku City a year ago? Nizu, you mean the story of how you uncovered a scheme from some corrupt politicians that were abducting children in order to experimentally enhance their quirks? Kaori, yes, you see Izuku was also there with when that instant happened, and this was how everything went down. And so UA's top counselor used her powers to allow everyone present to see Flash Princess's memories. Backstory: it had been 2 years into Izuku's training and he had been progressing nicely. However, throughout this time, young, overwhelming levels of darkness had taken a bit of a toll on his personality. He had been more quiet, smiling less and less, and was thinking negatively about himself even more than before he met Kaori. At this time, Kaori had gotten the chance to take some time off a spa for a couple of days and had taken Izuku with her, hoping it would have him take his mind of this, and also she was afraid to leave him alone. Kaori had heard rumors that a bunch of children had been going missing around that area for about a month, and none of the regular heroes or local police had any lead. The first 2 days they spent were relatively peaceful. Kaori had been focused on catching up on a novel she had been writing, and Izuku would read what she had written so far. Occasionally, the 2 of them would spend some time playing shogi together, or they would just talk about life. FP, looks like you beat me this time. Izuku, I didn't expect I would be good at shogi, but I guess I can be. FP, you learn quite that why you're my top student. Izuku, MSTRFP, yeah. Izuku, I'm your only student. On the final night, Kaori had gotten up in the middle of the night, and during that time someone had tried to kidnap the manager's younger daughter. The person was middle-aged woman with camouflaging quirk, but Kaori was about to notice her right away and make quite work of her. With the help of her chi, she had intimidated the kidnapper to revealing where she was planning to take the young girl. After only 13 minutes of lying, she had reached the location of where she was told to go. What she found was what appears to be an orderly office building. However, after examining it carefully, she discovered that there was a basement level, and using her quirk realized that there was a lot of life force down there and decided to investigate. FP, just what is this place? It appears to some kind of underground laboratory. Flash Princess looked around for a little while and soon found a room that appeared to be half the size of a gymnasium and filled with many different pieces of equipment. But that wasn't all. There was also about 24 larger tanks of water, but it wasn't normal water and with something in each one of them. She opened the lid of one, and once she did, all the weird water started to flow out, revealing what was inside, but what she saw left her speechless. She found what appeared to be a little girl that looked to no more than 7 years old. After regeneration her composure, the hero grabbed the girl out of the tank and attempted to walk her up. But it was no use, she completely out. After examining her closely it appeared that she was inside the thing for some time. Her body was almost as good as a corpse and it didn't help that she wasn't even clothed, but then Flash Princess realized that all these different tanks were filled with children, the children that were reported missing throughout the entire city. This realization was so overwhelming that she didn't notice that someone else had walked into the room. "Hey you, who are you? How did you get in here? FP. What is this place? And what are you doing with all these kids?" The man didn't answer and instead pulled out a gun and fired at the hero. However, she dogged it quickly, making sure to get the unconscious girl out of the way. Then with her quirk teleported behind the man, grabbing him by the air and making him drop his gun, then pinned him to the ground. "FP livid, now I'm going to as you again, tell me what you are doing with these kids." But before the man couldn't answer, someone else's voice could be heard from behind them. "Senator, what's going on?" They both turned around to see a woman with black sunglasses and a business suit with 2 more of those water tanks on a cart by her side. The woman was about to pull a weapon, but then the senator yelled, "Don't stand there, get out of here." The woman started running down the hallway in an attempt to get away, but Kaori used her light WHP to tangle her legs and drag her back. The pro then attempted to get answer for her instead, and it appeared that she was actually willing to talk. But before she could answer, she reached into her back pocket and hailed a gun up to her head, but there was a twist. "Please, you don't have to do this. I'm not the one doing this. Senator, I'm sorry, but no one can find out about any of this." The 2 women looked to see that the so-called senator was miming, holding a gun to his head with a sadistic smile on his face. It turned out that his quirk was called mime control. It allows someone to manipulate another person's actions by miming them in unison with the victim. During this confrontation, it was revealed that the woman was the senator's bodyguard and he didn't want the secrets of the underground laboratory revealed to anyone, and he was willing to elemental anyone who could reveal those secrets. However, before he could force her to pull the trigger, black shadows appeared on both of them, covering both of the arms that were held up to their heads. Kaori knew what this was, but her suspicions were confirmed as she turned around and saw her student. "Izuku, 𝐶𝐿. FP, Izuku, what are you doing here?" "Izuku, I woke up from the commotion that happened at the spa and followed you." "FP, you little idiot, you can't interfere with pro-hero business." But she couldn't finish her sentence because in that instant Izuku had started to grab his head with both hands and kneel down like he was hanging, the worst headache ever, which caused him to lose focus on his quirk and release the 2 convicts. Because of Yang's ability to feel all matters of darkness within others, Izuku able feel all the sadness, loneliness, fear, pain and hatred for all the children that were being held captive inside the lab all at once. Kaori knew exactly what was happening and knew that C couldn't leave in case he got out of control. However, right after the 2 who were being detained began running in different directions. The bodyguard running out of the lab and the man running farther inside, but before he got any farther he tripped over the 2 tanks in the hallway and caused them to burst open. And what popped out terrified the student and teacher duo. It was a pair of a young boy who looked to be 8 and a girl that appeared to be the same age. Kaori normally keeps her composure, but after seeing this her anger took over her, and she rushed over to the so-called senator and started punching the hell out of him. But she was still able to keep some level of control over her emotions, having seen many gruesome things being an ex-assassin. As this was happening, Izuku had calmed down a little and walked over to the 2 children to check on their condition. He placed his hands on them to check if they had a pulse. It turned they were still alive, but what he didn't know was that they were still conscious. "Who's there? Please let us go." And just like before, Izuku could feel all of their inner dark emotions, but this time it was worse. Not just because he was making contact with them, but because he could feel that they were nearing the side of hated. Using Yang's power, he could see that they were subjected to many crucial experiments, which were filled with electroshocks, painful injections, and extreme overuse of their quirks for hours with no rest, which resulted in out and internal body damage and leaving them permanently blind. But there was something much worse than he noticed. It was that both of them were only had about a few short moments until their deaths. Izuku that even his or his MSTRS quirks, it wouldn't have any permanent effects or buy them enough time. He felt completely helpless. Hero were two people needed a hero and he couldn't do anything for them. So instead he decided to talk to them in hopes of easing their souls. Izuku, please listen, I'm not one of them. Are you a? Izuku, I. Yes I am. Can you please tell me your name? Rei, I'm Rei 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 Aoi, Io 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻 Izuku, your sibling. I'm sorry, I wish we could have found you sooner. Then maybe none of this would have happened. There was even more dark emotions flowing through them and he could feel the difference between them and just how much those emotions were consuming their hearts. But Izuku also sensed some relief after they heard him lie and told them he was a hero. They only had a few seconds to live. In all the time Izuku's been Yang's newest vessel, he struggled to maintain his pure heroic heart, but he understood that his past was nothing compared to what these children had gone through. Their feelings of hatred were much stronger than his own, that they were wishing for that senator's death, and now they were about to leave this world with all that inside them. So he decided to do the only thing he could think of. He placed his hand on the top of their heads and activated his pain transfer and started to transfer all of their painful emotions. This was the first time using this quirk with someone emotions, and it was even worse than he thought it would be. Taken all the negative feelings of two people, enhanced all the ones he already had in him. And so Izuku's saddened face experience had turned into an emotionless one. After he was done talking in all their emotions, he asked the two of them something in their final moments. Izuku, no emotion, I'm afraid there's no hope of saying you both going to die. But let me ask you, what do you want me to do about that man? Rei, will you stop him? Izuku, how do you mean? Rei, bring him to justice. Izuku, are you sure that's what you want? Aoi, yes. Izuku. All right. Both smiling, thank you. And those were their last words before their eyes had closed. Izuku had seen memories of Yang's previous vessels in his dreams, and there was quite a bit of death involved in most of them, but seeing it in real life was far more than he expected. Normally talking, all the emotions would have returned to their owners after a few seconds, but now that they were no longer alive, there was no longer a place for all that darkness to go back to. Izuku had then turned his attention to the senator and saw that his face was beaten to bloody pulp. He was being held by the collar. His emissary was still trying to get answers from him, but see, his face triggered all the new feelings he had. And so he gathered all the shadows he could in the dark hallway and shaped them into hands and started staring him. Kaori tried convicting him to not go any further, and Izuku in thoughts began screaming at him to not give in to any more hatred. But due to the drawbacks of using shadow control, at night the shadows were going out of control and Izuku couldn't handle them anymore. And so his emissary thought of the only thing that she could at that time and punched him with only enough force to knock him out. After that, a few hours had passed and the authorities had finally arrived to shut everything down. It had turned out that a few of Japan's wealthiest politicians were working on creating enhanced super soldiers from children with gifted quirks for their government in case there was ever a threat that not even the heroes could take on alone. However, due to all the inhumane experiments, there were many casualties, some of which were from other cities. Kaori has decided to take Izuku to the hospital just to be on the safe side. Luckily, his physical health was completely fine, but it was his mental health that had her worried. The morning had come, and after she had finished expanding everything to the police and the media, Kaori had gone to check on her student, but she wasn't alone. It turned out all the families of the children that were taken, and one in particular, had asked to speak directly with the hero and Izuku. But once they arrived to his hospital room, Kaori had seen something that she wasn't expecting. Izuku's appearance had changed and his face had the look of someone who had lost all meaning in life. FP, Izuku. Izuku, 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻. FP, Sai, how are you doing? Izuku. Well, I'm not hurt, so that's something. FP, well, there's someone here to see you. You can come in. Izuku had turned his head to see someone he didn't recognize, a woman that looked to be in her 40s. And how had the eyes of someone who had been crying non-stop. Mio-san. I'm Mio 𝐻𝐻𝐽𝐻. Izuku. Are you? Mio, yes I am. I was told that you were with my son and daughter in their final moments. Izuku, yes I was. Mio, I wanted to ask. Could you tell me about my children's last moments? Izuku looked down. They were striking with so much pain. They were also praying for their parents or anyone to come for them. Mio tearing up. Oh, is that right? Was that all? FP. Izuku, I noticed that you activated your quirk while I was preoccupied. What exactly did you do? Izuku, I took in all their pain. You what? Mio, wait, what do you mean by that? Izuku, my quirk allows me to feel dark emotions. I could feel all hated those kids had inside, their hearts were screaming their kidnapper's death. So before they died, I chose to take all of that hated into myself. The two women were left speechless. How couldn't anyone respond to a statement like that? After a minute of silence, 𝐻𝐼𝐻 had decided to ask Izuku why exactly he chose to do something like that. Izuku, I don't understand a lot of things, but the feelings of loneliness, pain and hatred are all too familiar to me. Every day is a challenge to maintain my humanity, and what I did will only make that challenge even worse. But still I believe that no child should have to die with that much hatred inside them. Izuku's final words once again left the room quiet. The mother didn't know what to expect from hearing about her children's final moments by a complete stranger. But it was only now that she realized that this so-called stranger was only a young child himself, and looking at the state he was made her like of that her son and daughter were probably like this before they were found. And he willingly took all of that from himself for their sake. In the end she got what she wanted to know, but before she took her leave she finally broke. She walked up in Izuku's bedside with rivers of tears streaming down her face. Mio, I came here to try and find some sort of closure. This hasn't made things any better. My children had suffered immensely and had their lives taken away from them. Nothing is ever going to heal this hole in my heart, but I want to. Izuku, what is it? Mio then lifts up her head, revealing her crying face, and started holding both of Izuku's hands. Mio, I still wanted to thank you. Thank you for saving my baby's hearts. Izuku. They were smiling at the end. They left this world as they truly were. That last statement made Mio cry, even though uncontrollably. After 10 minutes she thanked them one last time and told her leave. Kaori told a moment to recover from the emotional moments that had just happened. But then she spoke up to her student. FP, Izuku, you might want to look at this. Pulled out a mirror. Izuku, little shocked. My hair, my eyes, they're solid black. FP, this is only a hunch, but maybe, by taking those kids' darkness and adding it to your own, Yang's power has grown even more, and your appearance change is a side effect of that. Izuku. Sir FP. Izuku, a part of me envies Rei and Aoi. The way she spoke about them and her broken expression made it clear that they were truly a family. I wish I had a mother like they had. FP, Izuku. Izuku, but I can still feel it. All of their darkness is still screaming in my head, wanting vengeance. MSTR, can I make a request? FP, what is it? Izuku, in the past I was confident that I could overcome my own hatred, but I know with this decision I made I'm not sure anyone. So if in the worst case scenario I want. FP, Izuku, tell me. Izuku lowers head. I want you to kill me. End of backstory. Kaori. And Izuku hasn't smiled once since that day. Not one person knew how to react. Inko and Izumi could only cry, and Toshinori's eyes widened as the amount of regret all three of them had reached beyond of what it was before. Shota couldn't maintain his blank expression, and you could see genuine sadness for his student. The rest of them were also in the same boat, since not a single one of them had any words for what they had just saw. After a few moments, Inko had finally decided to speak up. Inko, I don't even have the word to say about what you just showed us. And I don't know just how much it's going to take for me to fix the damage we have caused. But please, will you just return my baby boy to me? FP, Sai, I see you still didn't get the point of what I showed you. Don't any of you understand? Izuku asks that insane request for me because he's afraid. What do you mean afraid? FP, he's afraid of himself. Not a single one of you have ever realized just how much of a pure heart the boy used to have. His drive and passion to do the right thing and help others was so strong that even after taking the darkest feeling of two people, he is still fighting on the inside to hold on to the person he used to be. Aizawa, I still don't fully understand. FP, Izuku is so terrified of crossing the line and going against his beliefs that he would rather choose death than let that happen. That the reason he created the choker, he designated to blow his head off if he's ever about to cross that line. And it's also the reason why he threw himself in front of that 𝐻𝐻𝐸. Wait. What was that? FP head down. At the USJ he didn't just do that just to save you 𝐻𝐸, he was also trying to kill himself. Everyone. FP, I'm not surprised none of you can find the words to respond. Izuku is so scared of losing control of himself and for Yang's influence on him that he chose to take the opportunity of kill himself off and take 𝐻𝐸 with him. Wait, hold on, how does that work? I thought that this power can move to a new host after its last one dies. FP, let me explain. Yes, both Yan and White can live within other after death, but it isn't that simple. You see, both of them have some requirements to be passed on to a new person. In Yang's case, it wants its vessels to decide on what they believe darkness really is in their view, and what they want to do with Yang's power after that. Only after making that decision can Yang leave after the current holder, but if that person happens to die before that, Yang can also be lost permanently. And that's the main reason Izuku did what he did. Just when everyone thought this couldn't get any more depressing and complicated, even more bombshells were dropped on them. Nothing of this was what anyone wanted to hear about Izuku's and Kaori's relationship. But one thing was clear to almost all of them, and that she really did the right thing after all. FP, I believe there's one final thing you should all know. The person that you all saw me fighting earlier today, I'm sure you already figured out that his contract to the league. But I should also inform you, for the past year since I was going, I had been trying to capture them and keep them from Japan. Nizu, and why is that? FP, you see, the group that man actually belongs to is called 𝐻𝐻𝐸. They're an organization of people that have been casted aside by society and originated in Europe. They are so fearsome around there that even the best Europe had to ask help from other nations' heroes like myself to capture them. Aizawa, do you know what exactly this 𝐻𝐻𝐸 is after? FP, they're after mine and Izuku's power. Everyone. What? FP, yes, you hear me right. However, even after being away for a year, I still couldn't figure out why exactly they want them. And now I learned that they're conceited with another villain group. So that's about all the information I have. Tell me, what do you think about this, UA, detective? All eyes turned to Principal Nizu. They all figured that he would have the best judgment out of everyone. No one here wanted to hear the Yagi's opinion after they had all learned today. And so Nizu had finally spoke to tell everyone his thoughts. Nizu, I've come to a decision. I believe it would be best to let Flash Princess switch over Izuku. What? Inko, Nizu, are you serious? Izumi, no, you have to be joking. Nizu, no, I am 100% serious. After going over all the information we all have received, I believe she is the best person to be in charge of caring for him. At first was on the verge of arresting her, but after what I've learned today, I have to agree with you, Nizu. Telep, yes, I also agree with this. Aizawa, same here. But the former number 5 hero wasn't having this anymore, and she, along with the other Yagis, finally blown their tops. Inko, I won't allow this. I have a right to have my son back. Yes, I feel the same way. Izumi, my brother belongs with his family, not a complete stranger. Nizu was about to retort, but Flash Princess beat him to it and addressed the family of 3 with one final lecture. FP, have any of you not learned a thing? You can't help Izuku not the way you are now. Inko, I'm still his mother. I've made a mistake, but I know I can make it right. FP, mistake. Are you still so blind that you only think what you all have done was just a simple mistake? Are you ever aware of just what you have robbed that boy of? Izumi, yes, a good life. That's mostly my fault, but still, FP, that not it at all. Let me make it clear to you. You robbed him of the most important times of his life for someone who wants to pursue be a hero. Those who choose to become heroes have to devote the rest of their lives into preparing to fight evil by the time they become teens. And for those people, the most precious times of their lives are when they are young and have time to just be normal children. Having friends, fun family memories, and just enjoying life to the fullest without any care in the world until they're finally exposed the ugly, darkest sides of the world. You took all of that away from him. Because of you, he was unable to have any friends and was ostracized by his peers and teachers for most of his life. Izumi, IFP, And you two did absolutely nothing for him and gave all of that love and attention to only one of your children and left Izuku alone in the dark. And now he's at the age where he no longer has the time for such things and can only focus on being a hero in training, not to mention he's also being targeted by two different villain groups. No matter what you do for this point forward, that fact is Izuku can never have any of those times back. Such a failure. Inko crying, my baby. FP, do you finally understand? Because of all that you have done, Izuku was so broken that he was willing to go along with a villain, to ask me, a complete stranger, to not return him his so-called family and spend from the time he was 4 thinking that if he just had a quirk then his family would love him. You say you wanted Izuku to be safe and happy. Let me tell you, he hasn't been either one of those in a very long time. Nizu, alright, I believe that's enough. Flash Princess, I want to thank you for your service and cooperation today. But I want to ask if you would be willing to allow UA to help with watching over young Izuku's progress. FP, well, I can't take both of those groups alone, especially if they're working together. Alright, I'll accept your help. Nizu, thank you. You may go now if you want. I believe you've kept him waiting long enough. But please come by UA on Monday. I would like to go over some other thing with you during then. Just wait a minute. Please, Flash Princess, please let us talk to him. I'm afraid you're not going anywhere, All Might. None of you are. We're done interrogating her, but we're just about to get started with all of you. FP, Nizu, thank you. I'll be going now and I'll see you on Monday. Aizawa, before you go, please let me go with you. I have some things I wanted Izuku to know. Kaori nodded and the both left the room and began to make their way to Izuku. Inko, please let us go after them. I just want to confront my son. No, I'm afraid not. I have a right mind to arrest all of you. All of you not only keep very vital information, but you all might also lied to all us. Your friends, comrades, you didn't just betrayed your son, you betrayed your own family and our trust. By keeping all this a secret from us, you not only keep Izuku in danger but also the entirety of Class 1A as well. Nizu, yes, that's exactly right. And I've also come to one final decision, and you all better listen carefully. The Yagis kept quiet and waited to hear what he was going to say. But nothing could have prepared them for what he was able to say. Nizu, I've decided that Bakugo and Todoroki will be moved to the support course. I'm still give them a chance since I was informed that they did well in protecting Class 1A during the attack. Izumi, however. Nizu, I've decided that Flash Princess is right. I have been too lenient. There has to be punishment for inexcusable actions. But we can't afford to lose you, All Might, for the public's sake, so we won't be arresting you. But as for you, Miss Yagi, starting Monday you will be expelled from UA. Back with Izuku, it was now 9:30 p.m. and both Kaori and Shoto had finally arrived at Izuku's hospital room, as they looked inside the doorway and saw that he was just sitting in a room quite not moving. Kaori that knocked on the door. Kaori, Izuku. Izuku turned his head, Mr. And Mr. Aizawa. Aizawa, that right, problem child. How are you holding up? Izuku, well, injuries are all healed. So, what's going to happen now? Aizawa, it was decided that you'll be staying with Flash Princess. She brought up some important things none of us knew about, and it was clear that she knew you a lot better than your no-good parents, so you don't have to worry. However, I don't think that I'm gonna let it slide about your reckless and illegal actions today. The UA Sports Festival is coming up soon, but after it's over I'm going to work you even harder than anyone as punishment. Izuku, I understand, Mr. Aizawa. Aizawa, well, I'm going to head home, it's getting late, but before I go there's one last thing I want to tell you. Shoto walked up to his student and placed his hand on his student's head. Aizawa, I didn't get the chance to thank you probably. Thanks for saving me, Izuku. Izuku, you're welcome, Mr. Aizawa. He then left the room, leaving only Izuku and his MSTR by themselves, giving them the chance that they both wanted to talk with each other like they said they would. Kaori, so it's been a while, hasn't it? Izuku, yeah, it has. Kaori, Izuku, I wanted to talk to you about your actions recently. About that choker and the UF. Izuku looked down. Are you disappointed in me? Kaori, no, I'm disappointed in myself. Izuku looks up. What are you talking about? Kaori, sigh, I feel like in all this time I haven't been able to do enough for you. Don't get me wrong, I still have faith you can overcome Yang's power. But if I could have done more, maybe you wouldn't haven't had tried what you did. The last thing I ever wanted was for you to give up on life so easy. Izuku, no, that's not true. I was the one who stupidly chose to give up right then and there. I had forgotten what really mattered, but seeing you again reminded me. You've done more for me than anyone else has in my entire life. No matter how much dark thoughts I have had, I've never once blamed you for anything. Kaori, smiling, and that's what still gives me hope. I put myself down and you would immediately try to lift me back up. That tells me that despite everything that's happened so far, you're still a hero on the inside. I know you have many things to say to me, but how about we wait until tomorrow? You don't have school, so we'll have the whole day to catch up. Izuku, sigh, fine. I've waited a year, I can wait a few more hours. Kaori, all right, but before we leave, Izuku, take off the choker please. Izuku was expecting her to ask that but was still hesitant to do it, but he complied nonetheless and revealed his neck to her. And what she saw made her sick. Its neck looked like he had had a noose wrapped around his neck 24 hours of the day since she last saw him. It wasn't something she never wanted to see. She pulled him a little closer and asked him one final question. Kaori, does it hurt? Izuku. You don't have to worry, I don't really feel it anymore. I'm sure I'll find a way to heal. But before he could finish, Kaori had pulled Izuku into a warm embrace and spoke softly. Kaori, you little idiot, it's okay to hurt, you know. He heard this and slowly started to hug back a little, though he would never say it out loud, but for Izuku this moment meant everything to him. Izuku, I'm sorry. Kaori, don't apologize. Let's just head home, I'm eager to see what you've done with the place. I'll heal you once we get there. But I want you to promise me something. Izuku, what is it? Kaori, Izuku, don't ever put this on again. Izuku. Okay, I promise. Kaori, good, now let's get going. Izuku, thank you, 𝐻𝐿. Kaori looks down to him. Izuku, we've talked about this before. Izuku, I know, I won't let it happen again. After everything was said and done, the duo had left the hospital and had taken a cab home since the pro hero didn't leave her mark on Izuku hours, so they could teleport themselves there. Once they finally arrived, the both decided to have a quick dinner like Kaori requested in her letter to Izuku a while back. He made them but okra with a side of miso soup, which happened to be his MSDR's favorite. As they were eating, they both had some discussions about work, Izuku's life at school, needless to say he was into that part much. And of course how his training by himself was coming along. So many things had happened to him in just one day, but for Izuku, little moments like these with Kaori was more valuable to him than anything. After an hour had passed, Kaori had passed out on the couch. She was beyond tired. Izuku has finished washing the dishes and was about to go to bed, but before he did, he walked over to his sleeping teacher and put a blanket over her and shut off the lights. But before he made it upstairs, he took one last glance at she and whispered to himself, Izuku, welcome home. And after that he went up to bed. However, what he didn't know what Kaori was still awake and headed what he said. The time they spent was a little awkward after what he had almost said before they left the hospital, and she knew he was beating himself up for it on the inside. Kaori, I'm sorry Izuku, but I don't have the right to be called that. I already failed one child and I don't want to fail you as well.